Morning, friends. Thank you all for being in here. I guess it's not really morning, it's almost noon, but still feels kind of morning-ish to me. Thank you all for being in here. Hey, Laura, Haley, Art, oh, Sarah. We got Brandy K. Brandy K has the Aussie painting that's in my intro. Art says, I've been meaning to ask you, Millennial, how are your snakes? They are doing good. I'm going to get back on my Millennial at Midnight channel. It's just, my health took a downturn after I started that and I couldn't keep up with everything. So I just stuck to this one for the time being. And I'm going to get back to that one though. Hey, Highland Girl. Something I thought would be fun to do on the Millennial at Midnight channel is some like boring history to sleep to type things, readings, because I know a lot of you like to fall asleep to the sound of my readings, but not when it's super disturbing stuff. Nobody wants the Epstein files in their dreams or the Gypstein files either. Hey, Kung Fu. Awesome. Thank you, Alora. I think I'm on the upswing. I had a little, outpatient procedure Monday that I think is helping, so I've been recovering. No problem. Thanks, Art. Getting some coffee here because my allergies are still a mess. Makes my throat sore. But yeah, we have Elvis, What Happened Today. And this is the book that was published just a little bit before Elvis died. So it's all the scandals that came out about Elvis just right before he died, sadly. Elvis, a really complicated person. Like, there are some things about his life I'm just like, ugh, like that's not good. And others I'm like, well, it's his time and things. But I don't know. We'll see how we feel, friends. I still love Elvis's music no matter what. The publisher's note says right here, beginning first page, publisher's note says the original publication date of this book was August 1st, 1977, 15 days prior to the unfortunate and untimely death of Elvis Presley. Elvis, What Happened is based on reminiscences of three longtime friends and bodyguards of Presley, as told to journalist Steve Dunleavy. This book was to be, in their minds, a desperate effort to communicate to Elvis one last time. He will read it, he will get hopping mad at us because he will know that every word is true, said Sonny West. But maybe, just maybe, it will do some good. It is too late for Elvis, but perhaps not too late for those who believe that every life contains a painful but instructive truth worthy of recording and understanding. That was their publisher's note. Oh, cool, Chris. That's awesome. Chris Blair has the audio cassette tape that came with this book. Hey, Ruth. Yeah, Priscilla honestly just seems like kind of evil to me, to be honest. Like what she did to her daughter, to Riley Keough, and the way she treated Lisa Marie. Yeah. Mustard mischief. I don't know what that means. Hey, Kathleen. Okay. Yeah, copyright is 1977. It says this is the fourth printing done in August 1977. Las Vegas. It is February and the air is so crisp and clean it almost crackles. The temperature is below freezing in New York. It is raining in Los Angeles. But in Vegas, it's party time as usual. On the ground floor of that monument to human intelligence called the Las Vegas Hilton, the salesmen from New Jersey and Ohio are lurching over blackjack tables, whiskey glasses in their hands. Their wives are addictively pushing quarters into the slots of the one-armed bandits. For anyone not familiar with that English slang term, it's one-armed bandits are the slot machines. Oh, gotcha, Mustard. I didn't realize that. That's a weird nickname. I wonder what that meant. Yeah, I went to Graceland on my 21st birthday. It's wild. High above the casino on the 13th floor of this giant hotel is the Imperial Suite. The mood is somber, silent, and tense. Two husky men, their custom made shoes sunk deep into the plush carpet, grimly survey the toyland spread 400 feet below them. Like a giant explosion in a paint factory, the lights flash convulsively, stitching a patchwork of madness that seems fitting in this mecca of insanity. Normally, the one night standers below them in the casino would have given their eye teeth to be in that lavish suite. There is champagne in the refrigerator, Dom Perignon chilled to perfection. Exotic foods are on call every minute of the day, and night in a town that pays no attention to what time it is when you want to eat, whether breakfast or it's a five-course feast. A few casual telephone calls can jam the suite with a who's who of celebrity register and some of the most beautiful women in the country. Thank you, Kathleen and Mustard. I appreciate that. But right now, Robert Red West, 37, and Delbert Sunny West, 35, would have done anything to be far away from that suite, anywhere. 100 times before in that same suite, it had been different. They had enjoyed the parties, the celebrities, the pretty women, the booze, the laughs. From time to time, they allowed themselves a rare feeling of smug self satisfaction. It wasn't a bad life for a pair of hicks from Memphis, Tennessee, whose only ambition when they left school had been to land a steady job. It hadn't been bad at all going to opening nights, rubbing shoulders with millionaires and movie stars, men who slapped them on the back and bought them drinks and called them by their first names. It was different now, very different. It's 3 a.m., February 19th, 1973, and the party is over. The champagne stays in the refrigerator. Sunny and Red settle for beer. There are no calls to pretty girls or movie stars, and the two lift the cans of beer to their lips. Their casual jackets hang open, and the tool of their trade peeks out from the leather holster each wears on the left side of his chest, a 38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver. They are correct shots. They are bodyguards to one of the most valuable human properties of the 20th century. They stand silent, avoiding each other's eyes. Talk will only make it worse. It's been a bad night. The adrenaline pumps through their temples. Red and Sunny, who know too well the man propped up in the king size bed in the master bedroom, realize the silence will end very soon and the night is going to get a lot worse. Minutes, normally irrelevant in a town where the casino's ban clocks, tick away painfully. Then the summons comes. The voice bellows from a bedroom. Sunny? Red? Y'all there? Sunny changs the beer can down on the custom made bar. Yes, boss, here. Red chimes in. Coming in. They move quickly. In the massive bedroom, which is carpeted in a lush green, stands a split level platform. On the platform is a huge bed covered in dark green corduroy. It is a regal room. Kings, queens, presidents, and prime ministers have slept in this bed. The occupant can survey the domain of the room and the panoramic view of the city below. A man lies in this bed propped up by four fluffy pillows. Soft lights from the ceiling bathe the bed in an aura reserved only for supreme beings. The man is dressed in an expensive handmade white silk pajamas. Draped across the chair are glistening, gem studded jumpsuits. A long-time honey blonde sits on the corner of the bed. A long limbed honey blonde sits on the corner of the bed. Her clothes speak of classy boutiques where patrons ignore price tags, and she is very beautiful. But there the elegance ends. The man in the bed is disturbed, very disturbed. His eyes are heavy lidded and bloodshot, and sweat glistens from the pores of his face and forehead, as if he were suffering from a cruel attack of malaria. The blonde darts her beautiful eyes nervously at first to Red and then Sunny. Red avoids her look and stares at the ceiling, only to realize the scene is reflected there in a large mirror. Thank you so much, Art is Life, for gifting the memberships, and Kathleen for becoming a member. I appreciate y'all. Sluggishly, the man pulls himself up from the pillows. He leans forward and crosses his legs, yoga fashion. When he speaks, the words are thick, merging into one another. Come here, Sonny, the man says softly. Come here, Sonny. Sonny mounts the platform and kneels at the bedside. The Smith & Wesson prods into the left breast as he leans across the bed to be closer to the man. The man extends his hand to Sonny, and Sonny reaches out to hold them. His grip is clammy. The nails sink into Sonny's palms. Look at my eyes, Sonny. Look at my eyes. The words tumble out in a quiet, tired monotone. The man has to die. You know that man has to die. The son of a bitch must go. You know it, Sonny. You know it. There is too much pain in me, and he did it. You hear me? I am right. I know I'm right. Mike Stone has to die. You will do it for me. Kill the son of a bitch, Sonny. I can count on you. I know I can. The beads of perspiration are now rolling down the man's face into the white silk pajamas. The voice is striking on the edge of hysteria. Tears flash in the eyes of Sonny West, a 6 foot 2 inch ox of a man who has never said no to a fight in his life and never lost one he has said yes to. Sonny is pleading, "No, boss, let's forget that talk, boss. I know he has caused you pain, but you can't talk like that. It ain't right. It just ain't right." The man is repeating over and over, "Mike Stone must die. He must die. You will do it for me. You must. He has no right to live." There are books on religion and the occult spread on the bed in front of the man. He sweeps back covers and they fall to the floor. He rolls out of bed and lurches past the chairs where the beautiful clothes of a star are draped. He brushes past them and they fall on the floor. He is a driven man now, muttering to himself, he's got to go. And carelessly, he swings open a giant closet door. Inside, more outfits glisten. Oh, I wanted to tell y'all too. Whoever wants to be included in the draw, sorry, hiccup, included in the drawing, just say in the chat, include me in the drawing. And then at the, I'll gather all those after the live stream is done and put the names into one of those wheel spinner apps and do the drawing. So just be aware, obviously, for me to mail it to you, you'll need to be comfortable giving me your address. I have a P.O. box, so it'll come from there. Okay. Let me get a sip of coffee. The beautiful honey blonde is losing her cool. There is desperation on her face. What's the matter with him? Can't somebody do something? Will somebody tell me what happened? Calm him down, for God's sake. What's wrong? Oh my God. Oh my God. Sonny looks like a little boy pleading with someone he loves dearly not to jump off a cliff. Pleading with someone he loves dearly not to jump off a cliff. The man stumbles into the closet, knocking aside the finery inside. He is looking for something and grabs a long, bulky object. Sonny West knows what it is, and he can feel his heart hit his stomach. Red West feels the back of his neck crawl. "Oh, Lordy," he whispers to himself. "Oh, Lordy." The man staggers back from inside the closet, gripping a gray green M16 rifle, and Sonny springs to his feet and backs towards the door. The man moves towards him and presses the gun into his hand. Sonny looks at it as if he was holding a rattlesnake's. "Jesus Christ, boss, no, not that. Please don't." Awesome, y'all. I will include y'all in the drawing. Good to know. Anyone else, just as you come in, feel free to just say, include me in the drawing if you want to be included in the drawing at the end. The man in the pajamas abandons his insistent monotone. "Doesn't anyone understand? Oh God, why doesn't anyone understand? Why can't you all understand? This man must die." He leaps drunkenly on the bed. He is now jumping up and down and turns his face to the wall. He literally tries to climb the wall, his nails digging into the surface to get a hold, his legs trying to get an impossible grip. "He has hurt me so much. You all know that. He's broken up my family. He has taken my wife away from me. He has destroyed everything and hurt me so much, and nobody cares. He is the one who has done it all." Sonny backs away, gripping the M16. There are tears glistening in his eyes, and Big Red is choked with emotion. The man continues to try to negotiate the bedroom wall. The honey blonde is pleading, "Baby, don't. Honey, don't. Please don't." Sonny walks slowly backwards out of the room, holding the M16. Tears stream down his face. The man in the pajamas doesn't know he's gone. Sonny turns around and throws the M16 into a wastebasket in the hallway and then walks into the sitting room. That's so crazy that just dumps a gun in a trash can. That still happens though. At the St. Louis airport, they find guns in the bathroom trash cans all the time, like little handguns, is people, I guess, forget or something, or think that they'll get them snuck through security. And whenever they get caught with them, they can't go through security. They're like, "Oh, I'll, take it to family or something." And they just go trash it in the bathroom trash can. It's wild. Hey, Joy, good to see you. Awesome, everyone. Happy to include y'all. Let's see. Another man has just come into the suite. His name is Lamar Fike. Normally a jolly 300-pound Texan who is now looking worried, he collapses into a chair and hefts his cowboy booted feet onto a table. Lamar Fike is like a member of the family to Red and Sonny. He knows there is a bad scene inside. Sonny answers the question before it is asked. Lamar, it's awful. You know what he wants me to do? He wants me to kill Mike Stone. He is in there trying to hypnotize me. He put an M16 in my hands and told me to go out and waste Mike Stone, just blow him away. Lamar looks up, his face full of sympathy, and addresses Sonny with his rarely used Christian name. Delbert, cousin, it's going to be a long, awful night. Sonny replies solemnly, no, it's going to last longer than a night, not just one night. This is going to last for a long time, and I don't know what to do. Elvis Presley was long past caring about Sonny's rare show of disobedience. He was not in this world. As Sonny and Lamar glumly reviewed the seriousness of what they were faced with, Red West and the long limbed blonde, Linda, former Miss Tennessee beauty queen, Southern Belle, and girlfriend to Presley. My screen just flicked. I don't know what happened. I hope everyone can still see me okay. Hey, just me. Hey, Amos. Right, Amos? Okay, a former Miss Tennessee beauty queen, Southern Belle, and girlfriend of Presley tried to calm him in his bedroom. Their attempts were useless. Red remembers there was just Linda, me, and E, which we called him, in there alone. I was damned if I knew what to do. I had seen him like this before, but never as bad. Linda was as nervous as a cat. I must confess, I was pretty emotional too. It's very difficult to see someone you love flip out like that. Linda was the first to act. She called one of Presley's doctors, Elias Ganem. Ganem? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. If y'all let me know if you are aware. Oh yeah, kung fu. I can imagine. Yep. I can imagine. Dr. Ganem, a genial, soft spoken Lebanese who was on 24-hour call whenever Presley was in Vegas. Dr. Ganem told Linda he was on his way. He would give Presley a shot to calm him down. Sonny had the presence of mind to walk out of the bedroom. Red was scared to leave in case Presley did something drastic. There was no telling what he might do in this state, he said. Presley turned to Red and weaved across the room towards him. He repeated the chant, God damn it, you know he has to die. Red, find someone to wipe him out. I want the son of a bitch dead. Mike, make some calls. Find someone. I could find a hitman in 10 seconds. You can do it. Just do it. That man, Mike Stone, has caused me too much suffering. The words had frightened everyone in the room, but they lay especially heavy on Red's mind. Red and Sonny are in many ways very much alike. Both are tough Southern boys, but in other ways they are different. Sonny and I are closer than most cousins, says Red. We grew up like brothers. His daddy bought my daddy off a farm where he worked. My granddaddy used to whip up on my dad, and Sonny's dad just got him away from there. They were both a pair of wild men, and we sort of grew up in their shadow, so we were close. It literally says his daddy bought my daddy off a farm where he worked. I They're not speaking of slavery time, so I'm not sure what exactly that means. Ugh, that's a nervous laugh, friends. I'm glad I'm not the only one, Art. Okay. But when it came to our reactions to E, there was a difference. Sonny sure as hell loved that man very much, but when it came to me, it was even more than that. Elvis had a kind of hold over me, a hold that I feel even to this day, even after all that has happened. Elvis could bring out the best in me, and he sure as hell could bring out the worst in me. He could really change my moods. If he gave me a hard time, I would get angry and then take it out on someone else. It was something I find difficult to explain, but it's there. Sonny rejected Presley's plans to kill Mike Stone with horror, but they lay like a festering sore on Red's mind. Red's love for Elvis Presley was close to being obsessive, and his obedience matched. That's weird to me. I don't Yeah, it might be Ruth. But it's just weird to me that this dude I mean, I have best friends that I've had my whole life that I love deeply as sisters, and it I wouldn't have any second thought if they lost their minds and asked me to kill someone. It's just no. And by the way, you're getting a psych hold now, you know? I don't I don't understand why this was even a question, but I wasn't there, so try not to judge too hard, but damn, What do y'all think? Red relates, man, I got to thinking he was suffering, and well, maybe it was just this one man who was causing the suffering. It happens like that. And I got to thinking maybe it just ain't right that any one human should be responsible for another human being suffering. I guess what I'm saying is this: when he told me to get a hold of someone to wipe out Mike Stone, I got to tell the truth. I was listening, and like a damn fool, I was listening hard. Again, I don't get it, friends. That night, Red watched Dr. Ganem give Presley a sedative to calm him down. As Presley slipped away into sleep, Red drew a deep sigh of relief. Maybe, he thought, the talk of killing is over. Maybe tomorrow, when he calmed down, he will forget all about it. Red had seen Presley get these attacks before. Often the next day, not a word would be said, and everything in the previous night would be forgotten. But Elvis Presley did not forget. The next day, when he saw Red, he was calm and he wanted to know what Red had done about his order. Red, you made that call yet? You working on that thing I asked you about last night? I want it done. Red shuddered. I'm working on it, boss. I made some calls. It's going to take me a little time. I'm working on it. Red was confused, torn between blind loyalty to Elvis and the gravity of the request. Red West has sure punched a lot of men out, but getting a hit man, this wasn't his scene. Yeah, that's very, very true. That's don't get me wrong, friends. I'm not over comparing Elvis to Epstein, but it's kind of similar how some of the girls that Epstein got to eventually, work from him and for him and procure other girls, they were not professional, they were not educated, runaways from bad situations. And when he provided them a better lifestyle, they appreciated it deeply. So, yeah, that's a thing that people with money both use and then I think even sometimes unintentionally just have kinda happen. Like, they suddenly come into money and they wanna help their friends. And sometimes I think it's possible without it being the intention on either side. Well, the friend feels like, "Oh my god, my friend gave me so much. I'm gonna do anything they want forever." And then also the person giving the money is like, "Oh, I need to keep helping my friend." And like this kind of catch 22 symbiotic relationship happens. If that makes any sense. If y'all disagree with me, feel free to let me know. Sometimes I don't catch everything. Right. Yeah. And then some of them got older, but they were so entrapped, like, "Well, I don't wanna go back to the lifestyle I had, so, like, what's it hurt to bring him another girl here and there?" And their processing was maimed, by Epstein, I think, in a lot of ways. Hey, Tony. Thanks for coming in. Just want to throw out real quick for everyone new coming in. If you want to be in the drawing for the book, just say in the chat, I want to be in the drawing. And then after I do the live stream, I'll go through the chat and take everyone's username who said that and put it in one of the wheel spin apps. Okay, Red shuddered. I'm working on it, boss. I've made some calls. It's going to take a little time. I'm working on it. Red was confused, torn between blind loyalty to Elvis and the gravity of the request. Oops, I read that part already. Red turned to his close friend, actor Robert Conrad. He was the only guy I could open up to, says Red. Conrad, the handsome nuggety star of Hawaiian Eye, Wild Wild West, and Baba Black Sheep, is a Hollywood veteran who has been around the track and doesn't shock easy. Red recalls, I was scared, but I didn't want to let Elvis down, and I didn't want to go around hiring anyone for a hit either. Listening to myself now, I must sound like a crazy man. It was crazy to even talk to Elvis about it, but I did, and well, I'm telling the truth. I like that Red has the self awareness to realize, like, I understand that it sounds crazy that I even considered it. Yeah, I agree, RL. Yep. Very possible, Art. I think that's very, very likely. Yep. And weirdly, since, we're all mostly in the Gyp verse, I think that's, when Dee Dee realized that Gypsy, how much Gypsy was lying to her, even though I know that Dee Dee was exaggerating things, to get more stuff, but I don't think she realized personally how much Gypsy was lying to her about her legs until Gypsy admitted it to her in 2011. And, then what's she going to do? Because her own little exaggerations suddenly look crazy. Okay, anyway, sorry about the little aside there, friends. Back to the book. Conrad spoke to Red with the calm expected of him. Look, man, don't get into it. Don't go near it. Stay well away. I've seen guys act like that before, just flip out. I've seen it as a reaction to pills or shots, just going along with what they say and just keep putting them off until they calm down and realize what they are asking. He will come to his senses and will forget all about it, we hope. Red listened quietly to Conrad and came to his senses. You're right, Bob. Thanks a lot, and let's forget about it. But Elvis still had not forgotten about it. He had become obsessed with this man, Mike Stone. Presley would say to Red, Hey, are you working on that thing? You made any calls? Red would stall for a time and put him off. Yeah, I'm making some calls. Sure am. Red was lying, of course. He hadn't made any calls about the hit yet. Now, at that time, Elvis was playing the Hilton, Red continues, and I guess there were about 6 or maybe 7 days left of his show there. About every second day, Elvis would come to me again. He would keep asking what I was doing about the hit. I would just keep putting him off. Now, what I did, I'm not going to make a whole lot of excuses, but apart from the fact that I loved the guy and I just couldn't stand seeing him hurt so bad. And let me tell you, he was hurting. So Red made some calls, this time for real. Oh, he did it, friends. Oh, shit. Hey, Elizabeth. Thanks for being in here. Yeah, RLF about that. I read an article that the reporter really put into words what I was thinking about the fact that Sarah Ferguson took her daughters, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, to visit Epstein right after he got out of prison. And the writer said, "I know why Sarah wasn't worried about her girls, and the reason is horrifying, and it is horrifying, is because she knew princesses are not his prey. He goes after girls that to those aristocratic types don't matter, you know? And I don't think that they matter to Sarah either, because Sarah one time, when talking about her divorce, said she took out her divorce emotions on food with food, whereas Andrew worked them out with concubines. And she showed no concern or whatsoever about whether or not those concubines were, where they came from. Were they willing? What happened, in my opinion. And also I heard that Priscilla Presley is putting up letting Sarah Ferguson stay with her right now. Because sorry, my throat's acting up again. Sarah Ferguson is in hiding right now. She's worried she's going to get arrested and questioned like Andrew did. And yeah, I read in an article that Priscilla Presley is one of the people that's helping her hide out. Yep, exactly, Kung Fu. I agree, Highland Girl, totally. Okay. In Las Vegas, you can get a telephone number for a strong arm man fairly easily. The town was founded on that sort of thing. A mob hit can be organized from there for $5,000, although no hits are to take place in Vegas itself. That's mafia policy. Red relates, look, man, believe me, anyone, a Baptist minister, can get a telephone number for that sort of thing anywhere, anytime. Well, like a big dumbass, I got a telephone number for a hit. The price he was quoted was $10,000. Now, I didn't give anyone's name to anyone. I just called this guy and asked how much it was going to cost. to be looked after. Then I told them I would call them back. On the last night of the show, Red went to Elvis with the information. I guess it must have been around February 25th or 26th. I went to him just before he was going on stage. I said to him, "Well, E, I made that call. I didn't do anything about it. But do you want me to call the guy back?" Red was going to make the call from a pay telephone, and he wanted Elvis to know that he hadn't let him down. But he also wanted to face Presley with just what he was doing. It was about 20 minutes before Presley was to go on stage. He pondered Red's question for several seconds and said, "Ah, hell, let's just leave it for now. Maybe it's a bit heavy. Just let's leave it off for now." Red to this day could remember the feeling of sheer relief. That night he was so happy he went out and got drunk. Now, the point was, when Elvis asked me to do this, I wanted E to realize what he was saying. That's why I strung him along. At the same time, I think I went as far as making a phone call, which was just plain dumbass crazy. But Elvis had that thing with me. But there is something here. I know some crazy asses crazier than me who, as soon as E had asked for Mike Stone to get the hit, they would have gone right out and got themselves a hitman. And before anyone realized what was going on, Mike Stone would have been dead. Now, there were guys around him that from time to time were real strung out, nutty people. What would Red have done if Presley had said, "Make the call"? It's a question Red doesn't like to ask himself. That's interesting. I kind of wonder that too, Highland Girl. Because, like, why would he be so insistent on it, like, so hard for it, and then all of a sudden just be like, "Nah, that's too heavy"? Or could it be that he come down from whatever drugs he was on? I don't know that we can rule that out either. Okay. Dave Hebler was 35 at the time. He was not a, or I'm sorry, he was a fifth degree black belt karate champion. He had not yet started to work for Elvis. That trip was yet to come. But he was one of many of the karate fraternity that always had a place among Presley's circle of friends. He was driving Presley in a Mercedes up to his mansion on Montevale Road in Beverly Hills. They were talking. Hebler had just split with his wife. He recalls Elvis had just come back from the Vegas trip, so I guess it must have been about March 1973. I heard a lot of talk among the boys about the night Elvis had asked to have Mike Stone hit. Elvis and I built up a rapport. We both shared the experience of having split with our wives. We sort of talked about it on a common ground. The problems you go through, the way you miss the kids, all that sort of stuff. But I got the distinct impression that the conversation was leading up to something about Mike Stone. Dave Hebler is one of the most dedicated karate talents in the country. From his involvement in the art, Dave knew Mike Stone very well. Stone, for his 180 pounds, is one of the most furious karate experts in the United States. He is quiet, good-looking man from Hawaii. Of 90 top class karate matches, he had not lost a single fight. He looked after his body at all times and was well liked in the Los Angeles karate circle. He made a modest living as an instructor, which suited his modest habits. Elvis knew that Mike Stone and Dave Hebler knew each other well. Dave recalls, "That talk about hitting Mike Stone was pretty disturbing. I did not know Elvis then like I do now, and I was sort of disappointed that he could think in those terms." Sort of disappointed. Secondly, let's face it, that kind of talk is pretty heavy stuff, even for guys like us who have been around a bit. Just because things don't fall your way, you don't go asking about hiring a hitman for God's sake. There, that's a more reasonable reaction. And thirdly, the whole thing could have got very nasty. Mike Stone is a pretty quiet guy, but believe me, if he had heard a word about this shit going around, he could have turned into a very bad dude. He's the kind of guy who would say, "Man, if you're looking for me, well, here I am." And if that happened, there's no question in my mind that Mike Stone could have ripped Elvis apart. Of course, Dave Hebler had known the problem. He knew that Mike Stone was the man who took Priscilla Presley from Elvis Presley. She had been a caged canary for so long. She had longed for a normal life around normal people doing normal things. She had found it in a darkly handsome karate instructor. Dave knew the situation very well. In fact, a few days before Elvis tried to draw him into this conversation about Mike Stone, Dave had been talking to Mike Stone and Priscilla at Orange Coast College in Westminster, Orange County, at a karate tournament. Priscilla, the beautiful little army brat who for more than a decade had one of the world's most glamorous fortunes at her fingertips, was dressed simply in a pair of jeans and a blouse. She was giggling and laughing like a cheerleader at her first football game. She was standing at the door of the tournament, stamping the hands of customers who came in. She was very sweet, and so was Mike. Very, very natural, Dave recalls. So this was Priscilla Presley, and here she is stamping hands at her boyfriend's tournament. She was just helping out her struggling karate instructor boyfriend, who I guess in those days, in a good week, would have been making $250. Maybe that was what bugged Elvis so much. If she had run off with someone like Frank Sinatra, maybe somehow that would have eased the hurt ego. I don't know, but 250 buck a week karate instructor, that must have hurt. Red West believes that Dave is only partly right. There is no doubt that his ego was very badly hurt. It happened right before our eyes. We knew it was going on when he didn't even know. Now, I don't blame her for leaving Elvis. She had a life that no normal woman could put up with. But I do know he loved that woman. Even today, he would never have a word said against her. He always told me, I will always have a love for Priscilla. In fact, deep down, I believe that Priscilla was one of the only two people he ever really did love in his whole life. He didn't love us. We thought he did. But he did love that woman, Priscilla. And that's the end of chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 2. That's funny, Joy. Oh. I'm going to turn the camera off for just a minute, friends. We'll keep chatting, but YouTube doesn't like it when I take a certain kind of break. I'm sure y'all know what I mean. If you heard the lighter there. And then we will continue chapter 2 in just a moment. Exactly, Joy. Have them if you get them. That's right, Highland Girl. Did any of y'all follow the drama between Priscilla Presley and Riley Keough, where she basically, it seems like, tried to take Graceland from her granddaughter? I don't know what is up with Priscilla. She's just, I don't understand the moves she makes, you know? I wish you could partake too, Highland Girl. Yeah, isn't it crazy, Joy? Oh, that's cool, Ruth. I didn't realize that was the year. That was the year. I hope we never get that again. I'm all for people serving. I just want it to be voluntary, you know? Okay. Now that I've got a sip of coffee, let's start chapter 2. Hume's High School was one of those drab 3-story relics of the South's 19th century past, a dull brown brick building. It stood forbiddingly on Manassas Street, Memphis, Tennessee, a monument to all that was strict Southern and no nonsense. The only thing good about Hume's High School was that on that hot summer day in 1952, was that the 3:15 p.m. bell had rung and kids were pouring out of the classrooms like frothy beer from a bottle. Okay. 16-year-old Red West, having been bent into a classroom desk all day, suddenly got a little spring into his lanky gait as he headed for the one of the really important things in his life, football practice. To Red, school hours spent in the classroom were just pesky interruptions of his teenage life. Let's see. I'm going to skip a couple of paragraphs and get to Red and Elvis. Okay. Red stopped off at his locker to pick up his football gear, and it was not yet 3:30, but the school halls were empty and silent. Red clattered eagerly down the polished brown asphalt hallway. His eye was caught by a solitary figure leaning desolately against the wall. Red was struck by the boy's apparent loneliness. He recognized him as a kid in the year ahead of him, Elvis Aaron Presley. Red knew him to say hello to, but nothing more. 17-year-old Presley was a nice kid, even if he looked a little out of place in the sea of kids with crew cuts and pink scalps. He was pasty-faced with a virulent case of acne. He had long brown hair cut in a ducktail fashion. There were handfuls of Vaseline he put on it to make it look much darker than it was. Long sideburns intruded into the acne. He had a preference for leather jackets and would often tie a red bandana around his neck in the popular fashion with interstate truck drivers of the area. Despite the fact that Presley was a year senior to Red, in fact, in his graduation year, he broke with teenage protocol and addressed Red first. He muttered a shy, "Hi, Red." Red's eyes are a little mist these days when he recalls the moment. Even just looking at him, I knew something was wrong. Something was bugging him. Red stopped his charge toward football practice and simply said, "Elvis, what's the matter? Something wrong?" Young Presley shuffled uncomfortably and said, "There's three guys outside that are going to beat me up." Red was never slow to lift his dukes to anyone, but he was particularly prone to go into action against bullies. Without looking to see how many were waiting outside, Red nodded his head and said quietly, "Let's go check on it and see what it's about." Red led the way along the hallway, down some steps, onto the sidewalk of Manassas Street. There stood three boys, high school seniors like Elvis. It seemed they had some objection about the way Elvis wore his hair. Now, there's no real way of telling when Red West is angry if you go by his voice. It's that same slow Tennessee country drawl that seems to take hours to complete a sentence. Red looked at the biggest boy there. "I understand you three little fat asses are going to whoop this little guy's ass." The big guy stuttered out an explanation. "Hey, man, it ain't your business. We're just going to talk to him, that's all." Red nodded. "Well, that's just fine. I'll tell you what, you and I will talk here for a while he just walks home in peace." Elvis turned quickly on his heels and sprinted home. The confrontation seemed to have ended. The next day, Elvis sidled up to Red after the class and said gratefully, "Gee, Red, thanks a lot for yesterday." Red smiled just as shy. "Forget it, man." Red has perfect recall for those days. It seems that the way I remember it, someone was always picking on him. I don't know why. He was easygoing, though, quiet, well mannered, was always respectful of his elders, and he never wised off at anyone. In many ways, he was a very good kid, a lot nicer than some of the others around. But if Presley's mouth wasn't arrogant, his appearance was. He would spend hours in the school washroom combing his ducktail to perfection. When he wasn't wearing a leather jacket and jeans, it was some outrageously colored pair of pegged pants. In the sea of 1,600 pink scalp kids at school, Elvis stood out like a camel in the Arctic. Intentionally or not, his appearance expressed a defiance that his demeanor did not match. Oh, wow, Ruth. That's awesome. You were 10 when Elvis died. That's crazy. Red relates. "It was that hair, man. It got him into all kinds of trouble. If he had a regular haircut like the rest of us, he probably wouldn't have been bothered. But I guess the other kids thought he was trying to show off or something. That hair has always been his crowning glory. I have never known any other human to take more time over their hair. He would spend hours on it, smoothing, mussing it up, and combing it again. Despite the rescue operation by Red, he and Elvis never really got close. It was just a warm hello or hi there, and we'd go our separate ways. We were in different classes, so we would just see each other a little bit off and on. He never fooled around in the streets, just straight home." Elvis tried out for the football team, but without much success. With a bit more weight and a lot more confidence, he might have made a good guard, but things just didn't seem to work out. "I think," says Red, "that Elvis lasted on the squad about 3 weeks. The coach, a good old guy called Coach Boyce, just couldn't stand Elvis and his long hair. Coach Boyce could be a real tough son of a gun, and he was always on to Elvis to cut his hair. He just shamed E so much he finally left the squad. I felt really sorry for him. He seemed very lonely and had no real friends. He just didn't seem to be able to fit in. But I gotta admire him. All that razzing that the kids and some of the teachers gave him about his hair, Elvis never would cut it. That was his trademark. He went his own way without fighting back, but he wouldn't give in. He would rather have died than cut that hair." In fact, the way Red remembers it, there was a time when Elvis thought his hair was going to be cut and he had a look on his face that gave the impression he was going to die. It happened not too long after Red's first rescue operation of Elvis. In those days, when children were forbidden to smoke on the school grounds, I guess in the 70s they were not forbidden. um, the school washroom was the smoking gallery. It was there that all the swingers congregated to sneak their clandestine puffs away from the teacher's watchful eyes. Red walked in to take a leak. The place was full of smoke, and you could hardly see in front of you for all the smoke, Red recounts. But I see far enough to notice old E was in a whole heap of trouble again. About 4 or 5 guys had him in there, and they were holding him and pushing him up against the wall and grabbing him from behind. They were yelling and laughing and wishing off at him about his hair. They decided they were going to cut his hair. Now, a smart guy usually keeps his nose out of other people's business. I knew the guys who were hassling Elvis. They were on the football squad. I suppose they got the hair cutting business from old Coach Boyce. The guys who were giving Elvis a hard time were not really bad guys, just a bit noisy and stuff. But when I saw Elvis' face, it just triggered something inside of me. I mean, we were just kids and they weren't going to kill him or anything, but there was that look of real fear on his face. He was looking like a frightened little animal, and I just couldn't stand seeing it. When you're very poor, you tend to let everyone look after their own troubles. But the face of Elvis's, I could see it to this day. And I saw that face like that many times after, and it always had the same effect on me, just churned up something inside of me. It's like a child's face, and it asks for help. Red zipped up and strolled over to the wall where the mob had Elvis pinned. "Now look," said Red to the mob, "this ain't gonna do anyone any good. There ain't no need for this. If he likes his hair that way, well, ain't no sense in hassling him. Now, if you cut his hair, you're gonna have to cut my hair too, and that's gonna develop into something else." Once again, that lazy, quiet drawl had a dramatic effect. The mob let Elvis go. Before Elvis left, he darted a look at Red that said thanks a million times over. Dave Hebler, who got to know Red as well as anyone, sums up Red this way: if a guy hassles me, I walk away. If he follows me and persists, then okay, I'll hit him. Now, with Sonny, if someone hassles him, he will try to talk the guy out of it, and if that doesn't work, he'll hit him. But with Red, if someone hassles him, he gives you the 2-minute warning. If you don't get the message pretty quick, boom, it's all over. In later days, the three of them together were like the Three Musketeers. Elvis saw Red the next day and gave him a shy thank you. It couldn't have been easy for Elvis, a year older than Red and a year ahead of him in school, to have to thank him twice for getting him out of trouble. In later years, says Red, he remembered those two incidents, although he never mentioned them. Elvis never forgets a damn thing. He has a memory like an elephant. Somehow, that year, 1952, put me in the role as Elvis's protector. It wasn't a role I looked for, it just happened that way. It was a role that Red assumed for the next 24 years in one way or another. Elvis had a way with me. Sometimes he was like a damn spoiled kid who needed to be spanked, and other times he was just so helpless and needing of help it was like your own child. It's a job I took on readily, and I had a lot of fun doing it and a lot of heartbreak. And even now, I still feel it's my job, even if I never see him again. Let's see. We've got a lot more description again. Now let's get back to Elvis. Okay. Elvis Presley, his hair shining like sprayed patent leather, was straddling the microphone in the most suggestive of manners. His groin gyrated just inches from the upright stand, and he was shaking in convulsive movements as if possessed by an alien spirit. When he sang quietly, he sobbed. When he sang loudly, he commanded his worshippers. The women seemed to be beset by alternating emotions from motherly pity to slave like obedience. His lips, curling down on the right side of his mouth, arrogantly pouted suggestion and triumph. Then, when his mouth would twist in pain, and 1,000 females screamed in pity and wanted to enclose the poor child in their arms. "Since my baby left me," the words of Heartbreak Hotel, already a stupendous seller, had the women crying out in pain for his loss. My God, thought Sonny West. And this is pimply faced Elvis Presley, who only 4 years ago had to look to my cousin Red to get him out of jams. It was hard for me to believe, he recalls. Sonny was having trouble keeping Miss Apple Pie in her seat. Sonny was in the Air Force and had gone to the along to the rodeo ground, which was not far from the air base, to see what the fuss was about. This kid he'd gone to school with. Believe me, this gal changed right before my eyes. I had heard all this publicity and I knew Red was close to Elvis, but it really didn't seem to make any impression on me. He was just a country and western singer who'd gotten into rock and roll a bit. But this gal, I'm telling you, it was like somebody had grabbed that lady there and dragged her off to bed. It would have happened then and there. Every time he moved, it seemed like a couple hundred gals were getting it off. Then after the show, my gal just went back to what she was like before. It was if all that carrying on was for Elvis and nobody else. Sonny never did score with the lady, but the incident gave him a preview of the awesome control Elvis held over a female audience, a power that Sonny was to see underlined 1,000 times in the years to come. Sonny never knew Elvis in school, just saw him in the hallways now and then. I was about 4 years behind him, and so there was no call to him. Maybe if he had been a big football hero or something, or a bit of a wild man with his fists, I would have made it my business to know more about him. But really, he was just an older kid who happened to get noticed because he had this long hair and pretty wild clothes. He was pretty much of a nobody. But now Elvis Presley was indeed a somebody who, Sonny realized, had had something hidden far inside of him when he was at Hume's High School. Now it was all coming out. Sonny wanted to go backstage that night and try to see Elvis, but he was too shy. And anyway, he probably wouldn't have been able to get near him. That year it was 1956, and the Heartbreak Hotel was setting sales records all over the country. Churchmen were preaching about the evil of Elvis Presley. Check the comments again, real quick. Yep, just a boy from Tupelo. So Art always got caught smoking at school, and Ruth never got trouble in school. We've got the whole spectrum here of school goodies to school troublemakers. Y'all are awesome. Even the communist press of Eastern Europe saw Elvis Presley as the main reason why American youth was so degenerate. In fact, they said Elvis Presley was just about the best reason communist youth should stay communist. In popular appeal, Elvis was surpassing even Valentino. There was Frank Sinatra, too, of course, but Elvis was someone American youth could call its very own. 2 more years of worldwide hysteria over Elvis would pass before Sonny West met him. I knew my cousin Red was very close to Elvis. Sonny recalls they had become like brothers. But when they were teaming up, I was off somewhere else. I had joined the Air Force, so I was not in on the beginning like Red was. By the time I met him, it was 1958. Elvis was getting pretty close to going into the Army, and Red had done a stint in the Marines. When Red came back to Memphis on leave, he would always just be with Elvis on his gigs. In fact, just about anywhere he went, Red was with him. I had just got out of the Air Force, and I told Red I wanted to meet him. I was a pretty typical Southern kid at the time, a crew-cut hellraiser who was easy to impress. If Sonny was expecting to see a sophisticated, elegantly tailored superstar clinking champagne glasses with other celebrities, he was in for a big disappointment. Red told me he would introduce me, Sonny recalls. So he told me to come on down to the Rainbow roller skating rink. Roller skating was big in those days in Memphis. If you didn't go to the movies on a date, you took your date to the Rainbow. Elvis was 23 at the time and the biggest single recording star in the country. Today, 23-year-old superstars would go to a roller skating rink with the same enthusiasm they would go to church. But Elvis was a different sort of superstar. Despite his outrageous gyrations on stage, he was very faithful to his Deep South roots. He lived with his parents, whom he adored. He was polite to the point of humility with his elders, and his pleasures were decidedly simple. In those days, says Sonny, Elvis would rent the roller rink for himself and his boys from midnight onwards. Then there would often be fans hanging around, and occasionally they would join in. He was always polite and considerate to them. For mostly 23-year-olds, roller skating would have probably been a bit juvenile. But it was as if Elvis was trying to make up for the things he missed out on as a kid in school. Elvis would keep on visiting that rink right into the early 60s. Other nights, he would rent the Memphis Fairgrounds from the owner, a local character named Wimpy Adams. He would ride the roller coaster and Dodge Gym cars with his Memphis friends until dawn some mornings. It was just plain clean fun, but they were among some of the best days of our lives. Red's life, my life, and I know Elvis's life. Sonny met Elvis on a spring night in 1958. He went to the rink with his brother-in-law, Bill Thorpe, a superb athlete who is Memphis all-school boxing champion. It was just before midnight, and we just hung around the edge of the rink until Red rolled up with Elvis. He introduced us, and Elvis couldn't have been nicer. We shook hands and asked about my time in the Air Force. We shot the breeze for a while. He seemed genuinely interested in me and what I had to say. He was, despite who he was, a very ordinary kind of guy. He was as good-looking as hell, but he seemed to take all the girls falling over him as a bit of a joke. It hadn't gone to his head. You just couldn't meet a nicer guy. In the years to come, whenever Red remembered that first impression of Sonny's, he would get a lump in his throat because Elvis did indeed change. Even if it wasn't his fault, he changed. Elvis turned Elvis turned to get into the rink, extended a warm handshake, gave that curled lip smile of his, and started to laugh as he eyed Sonny and Bill Thorpe. He left them with a comment, "New meat, huh?" Red smiled back at Elvis and rubbed his hand together and said, "Yes, Elvis, new meat." Neither Sonny nor Bill understood what they meant, although they soon would. Elvis read at a crowd of insiders, including Elvis's cousins, Bobby and Junior Smith, started to skate around the rink. Sonny recognized the Smith boys. They had another brother, Billy, who became part of Presley's entourage when Sonny hit the road. Bobby and Junior were not as fortunate. They were the black sheeps of the Presley family and were later exiled to the outer limits of the group. But in those days, they were about as skillful skaters as anyone could find in Memphis. A little after midnight, Sonny and Bill Thorpe noticed that several cardboard boxes had been brought on the scene. Inside was an assortment of pads for the shins, shoulders, elbows, and knees. Looked a pretty sensible idea, recalls Sonny. We weren't good skaters, so we started to put them on. If we fell over, we wouldn't get hurt, and seeing most of us played football, it was a good idea to keep the injuries down. Then Sonny and Bill saw what the pads were really for, and they realized what Elvis's new meat remark meant. The group on the floor divided themselves up into two teams. They were playing a game called War. The game had extremely simple rooms. Both teams charged at each other, and the object was to knock the opposition off their feet. Sonny remembers Bill Thorpe looking at this. We said, "Are you crazy? I'm not getting in there with that stuff." Sonny was not as prudent, particularly as his cousin, Red, dared him to get on the floor. Sonny relates, "I must have been mad, but it was too late. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor. Junior Smith was the referee. He blew the whistle, and the war was on." Sonny was on the team opposite Red and Elvis. There were no rules except a gentleman's agreement that there would be no punching. Despite the fact that the toughest guy was on the opposition team, Red West, Sonny had no real trouble from him. Okay, that's funny that they were actually doing like a adult style Red Rover. I was afraid new meat was going to mean something about women. Hey, Lulu. Elvis. That's so funny. Oh, for anyone new coming in, just a reminder to everybody, if you want to be in the drawing for the book, just say in the chat, "I would like to be in the drawing." And I'll put all those comments in the drawing later. But Lordy, there was this gal, I'll never forget her. She flat-assed killed me, says Sonny. I would be skating along and then wham, this gal would knock me flat. Elvis would see this and then burst out laughing. I would get up and wham, down I would go again. When I first got in there and saw a woman on the other side, I was ready to go easy on her, but I grew to where I wanted to kill her. About an hour and a half in, she had near broken me in half. One time, she sent me skidding into the railing and I split my cheek. Elvis always had a first aid man there, so he patched me up and I went on the floor again. In the end, I saw her coming toward me and set myself to send her flying. Well, man, that was a mistake. When she hit me, she knocked me flatter than a tack. Me, 6 foot 2 inch me, and a gal knocks me flat on my ass. This time, she hit me so hard that I hit my head on the floor, and that was it. I was out cold. When I regained consciousness, there was Elvis standing over me laughing, that boyish laugh. He looked down and said, "New meat, huh?" Those sons of bitches knew all along what she could do. But it was great fun, and Elvis was fun to be with. Sonny and Red recalled that Elvis played hard and tough on those nights, and he reveled in the rough and tumble. At last, Elvis Aaron Presley was one of the boys. Well, not quite, corrected Red. We made sure that he never really got hurt. We were always looking after him. Nobody picked on Elvis. Most of us were very close friends. Occasionally, an outsider would come in and try to make a show off in front of one of his girlfriends and take Elvis out. About a week after Sonny came to the rink, there was one of the guys who was making a real ass of himself, just going for Elvis and nobody else. Well, we took care of him real good. After the first night, Sonny and I were always on Elvis's team. Well, this one guy, Sonny and I taught him a lesson. We high-loed him and sent him about 15 feet through the air. Luckily, he didn't hit the railing or it would have killed him. Elvis liked that kind of loyalty. Elvis was only a few weeks away from going into the army. He took an immediate shine to the big, husky, handsome Sonny. Red knew that Sonny was going to be on the Elvis team for a long time to come. Elvis told Sonny when he returned from his stint in the army, he would like to see more of him. There was only one little note of discord. Elvis told Red a week before leaving for Germany. He's a heck of a nice guy, your cousin, Sonny, but he never stops saying son of a bitch. He calls everyone son of a bitch. I just wished he would stop saying it all the time. There's that Old South upbringing rearing its head in Elvis. Let me get a little drink here. We are on chapter 3 now, friends. That's how my grandpa would say it, Joy. Some bitch. Elvis thinks you're a great guy, Red told Sonny, but he figures you cuss too much. Always cussing, saying GD, and calling everybody a son of a bitch. They both laughed. But as Sonny became closer, much closer, he realized that for Elvis, son of a bitch held a deep, particularly deep insult. If Priscilla Presley was, as Red points out, one of the two people who Presley ever loved, the other was his mother, Gladys Presley. Sonny relates, it was as if the word was an immediate insult to his mother, and man, that was treading on dangerous ground with Elvis. It was in 1963, Sonny saw that word trigger an uncontrollable flash of temper. By then, Elvis was making an estimated $3 million a year, and his spending habits had reached exotic proportion. His film commitments meant he was spending more time in Hollywood, along with a mind boggling fleet of cars. Presley rented, and he later bought some of the best and most stylish houses that Tinseltown had to offer. One in particular he rented was in Bel Air on Bellagio Road. It was the kind of house that poor Memphis kids dreamed of when they flicked ravenously through home magazines. Elvis was particularly generous with his hospitality. His houses were continual halfway stops for his cronies and the ever faithful band of Southerners who had been dubbed by the press the Memphis Mafia. If he liked you, you were in, and when Elvis liked you, there were no half measures. Clothes, parties, Cadillacs were all part of the accoutrements of being a friend. In return, he demanded blind loyalty and a faith that whatever he did was right. On this particular night, one that is indelibly imprinted in Sonny's mind, Elvis held open house. The place was made for fun and games. Apart from its lavish furnishings, there was a special party room that contained every conceivable kind of pinball game. In the center room, there was a large competition-sized pool game. The room was on a lower level. Steps from the game room took you into a gigantic living room. Sonny knew there was going to be a few of the boys around throwing an impromptu party. The final filming for Fun in Acapulco was over and everybody was winding down. I was at the International House of Pancakes on the Strip, and I picked up on these two pretty girls. One of the girls later became quite a well known actress. And the other one, let's call her Judy, which is not her real name, was a sweet little thing. I think she's probably married now, so I don't want to embarrass her by identifying her. Anyway, I took them up to the house, and there was a whole lot going on there. Depending on what sort of mood he was in, Elvis on one of these nights might just say hello to everybody and go straight to bed. Other nights, he wouldn't even come down at all. But if he was looking around for a little action, he would sweet talk some gal for a while and take her upstairs for some action. On this night, Elvis didn't seem to be doing any of those things. He was pretty tired and seemed a bit agitated. I walked in and gave him a big hello. He wanted me to play pool with him. Now I have these ladies with me, but when Elvis wants you to do something, you do it. So I left these two gals all with the other vultures up there and started to play pool with Elvis. Hey Marcel, good to see you in here in Diet Pepsi. Some of y'all coming in here. If you didn't hear earlier, if you want to be in the drawing, just say I want to be in the drawing in the chat. So I left these two little gals to all the other vultures up there and started to play pool with Elvis. After a while, we started playing four-hand pool and two other guys at the party. Elvis's was not being helped by the fact that he was muffling about every second shot. As in all these cases, I got a bit tense, knowing Elvis can flash in these situations. What made me more worried was the fact that there was a lot of people here, lots of chicks, and I was scared he would do something in front of them all. Sonny's intuition was shockingly accurate. By this time, little Judy had gotten a bit bored with the party. The man she had come with, Sonny, seemed too busy playing pool to take any notice of her. She decided to leave. Anyway, Elvis is just about to hit a shot, and little old Judy comes down the steps into the games room. She called to him, I think I better be leaving now, Sonny. Can you move your car, please? It's blocking mine. I can't get out. Sonny replied, Yep, hun, just a minute. Elvis slowly rose from the table where he was about to hit a shot. Sonny, what in the hell does she want? Sonny shrugged. Nothing, boss. She just wants me to move my car so she can get out. That didn't satisfy Elvis. Whoa there. Hell, man, you're playing pool. Let her get someone else to move the damn car. Judy flushed with embarrassment. She had never met Elvis, although she admired him, and now he was telling her to go to blazes. Judy replied, Look, I'm sorry. I just don't know anyone else here. That's why I asked Sonny. And Sonny, if you just move it, I'll leave. I'm sorry to bother you. Judy looked like she wanted to jump in a hole somewhere. Elvis Presley's eyes narrowed. He pulled himself upright and his lips curled back. Sonny knew the signs. God damn it, yelled Elvis. God damn it, didn't you hear what I said? Get someone else to move it. Judy had endured enough embarrassment, and she flared in return. Go to hell, you son of a bitch. That did it. It happened very fast. He took that pull cue in his fist, then, like he was throwing a spear, he just leaned back and threw it right at her across the pool table. She had no time to duck. The sharp end of the pull cue bored right into her body. It hit her just above the nipple of the left breast. She didn't scream. It was more like a sharp little gasp, and she crumpled backwards to the floor. Oh my God, I didn't know about this. Oh, thank you so much, Marcella. I appreciate that. Yeah, it really does, Lulu. Um, I knew Elvis was violent, but I never knew that he actually was violent directly to a woman. I knew he had displays of violence in front of women, but I didn't know about him actually hurting a woman physically intentionally. That is wild, right, Joy? Ouch. What the hell? It was more like a sharp little gasp, and she crumpled backwards on the floor. Sunny dashed around the table to where Judy lay on the ground. Judy, Judy, are you okay, hon? Sunny was worried. She was very pale and she was lying there sobbing very quietly. Her face was whiter than vanilla ice cream. I was scared something bad had happened. It was a hell of a blow. When Sunny yelled out and asked whether Judy was all right, Elvis picked up another cue and replied, Hell yes, she's all right. It was just one of those dramatic falls. Drag her ass out of here. Wow. Wow. Sonny quietly picked up the sobbing Judy in his arms, carried her up the steps to an upper level of the den, and laid her quietly on a couch. A hush had fallen over the party. Everybody seemed embarrassed. Yeah, embarrassed, you think? Oh, yeah, they say he did. The word is that Priscilla was actually there and one of the people who found him. Right, Kung Fu? Same. Elvis called for Sonny to get back to the pool table. She was hurting, Sunny recalled. Her face was all screwed up with pain and she was sobbing. Jesus, I felt awful. I talked to her trying to calm her down, but she was hurting and she was mad, and I don't blame her for being mad. She looked up at Sonny and repeated, That son of a bitch. Why did he do that? I never did anything to him. He needn't have done that. She was holding her breast and sobbing. Gee, hun, said Sonny, I'm sorry that happened. I know he didn't mean it. It was just one of those reaction things, you know. It was temper. He didn't mean it. It's going to be all right. Sonny was angry at himself. Here he was covering for Elvis for what he thought was a particularly brutal act. If any other man had done it in Sonny's presence, he would have dismembered him. That's like how you hear people talking about Epstein. They're like, oh, you just don't understand. When you were near him, he would just do anything. I don't think their personalities were actually that magnetic. I think it was the money, friends. What do y'all think? You know? It wasn't Priscilla there though, Joy, or maybe I might have read some misinformation. That's possible too. Right, Ruth? Yeah, Diane. Yep, money and fame, kung fu. Yeah, just a reaction. Like what? It pierced her boob right over her heart with a pull cue because she needed someone to move her car. God. Then, recalls Sonny, she started talking about suing Elvis. I was worried about that in the back of my mind. She had every damn right to sue him. I told her not to be silly. She should forget about it. Then I very gently told her that she was in his house and if she did insult him, and there were a lot of friends around as witnesses. And then I said, who do you think they're going to stand up for? Judy was steaming. I don't care who they will stand up for. I'm going to sue him. He deserves it. Sonny felt ashamed of himself. That wasn't really his style. Here was this little girl, victim of a sudden sadistic flash of temper, and he was trying to talk her out of suing. It's interesting that he's protecting her name and stuff, so we can't verify, but I wonder if she was a minor at this time because he calls her a little girl, you know? Exactly. Highland Girl. Yeah. I've never been around that kind of money a lot, but I have, there was a time I worked in a bank before I went, I told y'all in January 2025, I retired after 19 years of working for a financial software company. I was a software analyst. And before that, in my early 20s, I worked for some banks. I was a public facing person in a bank. I started out as a bank teller and then I did other things. And there were a few occasions that older men asked me on dates, and they were very rich. I know just how rich they were because I handled their accounts. You know what I mean? And I can't even begin to tell you the creepy feeling I got when they asked me out, and I'm just like, "Oh, no, thank you." I'd tell them I had a boyfriend, I'd pretend to be married, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes I'd wear my grandma's wedding ring, things like that. And, yeah, the dark aura of some of those men was so creepy that, like, no amount of money, and I just felt really sorry thinking of women, even though, I wasn't in a great place. I was working at that bank for a pretty low wage and high bills kind of thing. But thinking of people in a more desperate place who might have felt compelled to say yes to those types of men when they didn't want to, just really, oh, it creeps me out. Creeps me out. Yeah, wasn't it, Jeff Bezos's ex-wife who, when they divorced, she gave away the majority of the money? I know that some people are like, "Oh, she gave it away for tax purposes, blah, blah, blah." You know what? Whatever, she didn't have to give it away. She still coulda sucked that all away and lived that billionaire elite, but from what I understand, she chose to bring herself down. Now, she's probably still a multimillionaire, but to me personally, I feel like there's such a vast difference between, your millionaires and multimillionaires and a billionaire. Like they just don't hit the same. Oh, thank you, Marcel. You know what's cool about this is I have a lot of antique clocks that my grandpa restored for me. He did that as a hobby. And, he was working on this one when he died. He died before he got it finished, and that's why you see the face on it of it has, little problems there. He hadn't got to that part yet, and I've just liked to keep it in the condition he had it. I'm sentimental like that. But, I have another grandfather clock in the dining room that he did complete for me, and then a couple of other really cool ones. Exactly, Highland Girl, for real, for real. Okay, where was I at? I wouldn't have blamed her a bit, he says, but I was so locked into Elvis, it was second nature for me to stand up for him, even when I knew he was very wrong. We had all brainwashed ourselves into that way of thinking. Judy got up and left. She never did file any suit. Sonny went back to the den after Judy left. He was angry at Presley. He scowled across the pool table at his boss, who had now calmed down and was obviously feeling guilty. He was trying to justify his actions. No way would he have said he was wrong, according to Sonny. Look, Sonny, he said, if she had hit me or called me a bastard or just told me to go fuck myself, it would have been okay. Sonny scowled. Hey, man, that little gal is hurting. There was no need to do that. She just wanted me to move the damn car. Elvis was insistent he had a right to do what he did, and then he said sheepishly, Well, man, she shouldn't have called me a son of a bitch. That ain't right. Doctors report that a particularly severe blow in the sensitive region of the breast can trigger a mass of ailments, a tumor reaction, a cyst, or a blood clot. Soon after the pool cue incident, Sonny bumped into Judy on the strip of Hollywood. She was still very annoyed at what had happened. I apologized to her because it was a bad deal and I quite liked her and I felt responsible because I brought her to the place. Anyway, I don't know whether it's true or not, but she told me that the pull cue had damaged some nerves in the left breast. The nipple of her left breast had dropped lower than the right. Damn, that made me angry. She was a pretty little thing with a cute figure. Son of a bitch, that made me angry. And that's the end of chapter 4. Nothing Elvis did was ever made him angry enough to not love Elvis the way he describes it, you know? Thank you, Marcel. I agree, Kathleen, right? Like people, but like I'm just, you know, I feel mad and then I'm done. I might mouth off about it. That's it. Oh, thank you, Lulu. I'll have to show y'all. I'll do a little video sometime showing y'all some of the clocks. Yeah, I've heard that so much kung fu and the little bit of experience I have, I agree. Hey, little kitty, no problem. Awesome. Remember, if you want to be in the drawing, just say so in the chat here. Whenever I get done, I'll do the drawing from everyone who said I want to be in the drawing in the chat. I've heard that they took that out of schools. Don't know. It's disappearing? Huh. That's crazy, Lulu. I'm seeing quite a few comments from you, but I don't know if there might be others that YouTube is hiding for some reason. That's funny, Highland. There you go. Okay. I'm going to take a break just real quick and run to the restroom, and we'll be right back. I'm going to put up the be right back sign. And I will be right back, friends. Okay, I am back, but I'm going to stay camera off for just a minute and partake. Trying to get my welcome sign off. How do I undo that? Crap. There we go. Let's see. Oh, hey, Ivona. Started at 11:30. Been reading about Elvis. If you want to be in the drawing, just say in the chat, I want to be in the drawing. Right? Yeah. It's going to be an interesting part. Trying to check the comments I missed here. Oh, I totally agree, Marcel. I believe deeply in separating the art from the artist, especially when the artist is dead. So if the artist did terrible things while they were alive, but they're dead, then you don't have to feel like you're supporting them in life. You know what I mean? If they're dead, if that makes any kind of sense. Ivona, I'm going to do a drawing at the end of the live stream for the Elvis book that I'm reading from. Give it away to one of y'all. I'll come back on screen in just a couple minutes, and we'll go to the next chapter. Awesome. Gotcha, Brandy. 10 to 7 in Scotland. Ooh, teal green eyes. That's pretty. Yeah, everybody always talks about Elvis's beautiful, beautiful blue eyes. I believe Brandy Kay told us earlier in the chat she has a family connection to Elvis. No, I'm not going to read the whole thing today. I'm probably going to skip to some more substantial chapters pretty soon. I figured I'd go for about 2 hours, so we probably got about 40 minutes left. There are pictures in the book too. I'll show y'all. Let's see what happens in chapter 4. Chapter 4 just kind of talks about karate a little bit. About young men with brutal experiences with drugs. And then, I know, right, Art? Time flies when you're having fun. We've actually been going for an hour and 20 minutes now. Okay. There we go. Okay, so chapter 5 talks about another girl. It's just a few pages. Let's see what this one says. She was a striking-looking girl, yet somehow had a quality of innocence. A beautiful mane of hair hung carelessly past her shoulders, and she had gorgeous eyes, a petite, well-rounded body, dainty movements, and a quick, shy laugh. Somewhere today, this girl, let's call her Jane, which is not her real name, is trying to put together a life that was almost ruined. She was not a model, not a singer, not an actress, just a giggly girl who didn't smoke or drink. If she had a vice, it was one that she shared with millions of women, a total infatuation with Elvis Presley. On most occasions, when Elvis played the Sahara Club in Lake Tahoe, Jane and her mother would come in to see the show. One night in the spring of 1971, her fidelity as an Elvis fan paid off beyond her wildest dreams. She was singled out of the audience by Elvis to be his companion. Just as simple and breathtakingly unbelievable as that. It was Elvis's last number. He looked stunning that night, a 36-year-old Adonis, arrogantly standing in the spotlight, orchestrating the audience with a tiny flicker of his bejeweled fingers. Closing number, I can't help falling in love with you. And as usual, middle-aged women who should have known better were swooning like tiny teeny boppers in front of their portly husbands. In the second row of the packed audience sat Jane, totally mesmerized as always when Presley stood on stage. As Presley got halfway through his number, he whipped out a soaked scarf from around his neck, kissed it, and threw it into the audience. Women charged like Oakland Raider linebackers, knocking over tables to the sound of broken cocktail glasses. Presley added to the pandemonium by reaching back into the band and producing more scarves. He would mop his forehead, kiss the scarf, and float it into the audience. The pandemonium that followed was unbelievable. The middle aged ladies waged tug of war battles over the scarves with the man's perspiration on it. Jane just sat there in the second row sighing. She did not get a scarf that night, but she did get something else. Some very admiring glances from Presley. Every time he would come to the edge of the stage, he would turn and wink at her. Jane was flabbergasted, but she didn't read too much into it. Why would he be attracted to her with all his women? As the show ended, Jane almost thought she saw Presley half wave to her. Impossible. She was drained of emotion. The show was over and it had been fantastic. Now for a night sleeping in the car before beginning the long trip home. Presley was not the only one giving her the eye that evening. From off stage, she received some very admiring glances from bodyguard Sonny West, a man not unused to the beauty of ladies at Elvis' performance. Also backstage with Sonny was Joe Esposito. Esposito, along with Dave Hebler, was one of the few non-Southerners in Elvis's entourage. Esposito was a fast-witted man from Chicago who had a reputation of being able to get things done quickly and smoothly. A taste for sharp clothes and a passion for diamonds caused the Memphis boys to call him Diamond Joe, a name that Esposito seemed to revel in. Esposito had met Elvis in the Army and had been with him on and off ever since. He had a keen eye for anything that would please his boss, and for his trouble, he was first member of the Presley entourage to be put on regular payroll. He was Presley's most valued aide. What Joe and Sonny were looking at in Jane Robertson was something that sure would please their boss. She simply oozed beauty and unself-consciousness, sex appeal. Not an ounce of makeup or lipstick on her face. She was really something else. As the show finished to thunderous applause and a long, loud squeal, Sonny and Joe raced around to where Presley would leave the stage. The three of them got into an elevator that would take them from the master dressing rooms into the basement. Presley was drenched in perspiration and his chest was heaving. He had put every ounce of energy into the show. Good show, E, said Sonny. You really turned him on. Elvis nodded thanks, but his mind was somewhere else. Goddamn, man, did you see that gal sitting in the front of the audience? Hell, she was some good-looking piece of woman. Who is she? She was beautiful. Sonny and Joe were not surprised he had spotted her. Normally, it's impossible to see an audience from a spotlit stage, but when Elvis had gone to the edge to throw out his scarves, he had been able to see the first 3 or so rows. Yep, said Sonny with a big smile. I know the one you're talking about, a real honey. Sonny didn't need to draw any pictures for him. He dashed upstairs as the dinner crowd was still recovering from their hysteria and zeroed in on Jane Robertson. Hey, hun, Sonny said. Do you want to meet Elvis? I'm Sonny West, and I work security for Mr. Presley. I would be very happy to introduce you to him. The response was to be expected. Oh, come on, replied Jane, not unfamiliar with lines used by men on the make. You're kidding me. Sonny flashed a big, charming smile. No pun, here's my identification. I work for Presley. I would be happy to introduce you. Come on, he's upstairs in his room. I'll take you all right on up. Elvis was in the inner dressing room changing, so Sonny introduced her all around. She exchanged small talk with Sonny and Joe on how much she enjoyed the show. She told them she had been an Elvis fan ever since she could remember being able to listen to his music. She laughed and giggled shyly. Then Elvis materialized from the inner dressing room, and Sonny thought Jane was going to collapse. She had this great laugh, a beautiful, shy personality. Boy, she was a looker. When meeting a new girl, Elvis very rarely changes his line. He comes on very quiet, very attentive, very considerate. He turns on the little old country boy act like a tap, and the girl falls like chopped down oaks. Even if Elvis wasn't who he was, say he was just an old truck driver, says Sonny, when he turns on that country boy charm, he could romance the Queen of England. Not surprisingly, Jane stayed in Elvis's suite that night. Her mother would make the trip home alone. Elvis really dug her, says Sonny. He saw a lot of her during that engagement, bought her some clothes and stuff. Not that she wanted them, she just wanted to be close to Elvis. But in a short while, Jane began to change in an ever so small way. Elvis started to give her a couple of pills here and there just to give her a lift. Not that she needed it, but I guess she didn't want to look like a hick or a square. She was taking things with Elvis, and I know she had never taken anything before, says Sonny. The night that Sonny would like to forget, Elvis, Sonny, and Charlie Hodge took Jane on a trip to the Presley home in Chino Canyon Road, Palm Springs. When they arrived, Elvis was feeling like getting out of it. He had taken his usual dose of pills during the day, but as bedtime came around, about 3 in the morning, Elvis produced a bottle of prescription Vicodin. I don't know what that is. Normally prescribed by doctors for severe cases of coughing or and congestion, Vicodin in large doses is a dangerous narcotic. Elvis would get out of his gourd on that stuff, Sonny recalls. I tasted it. Yuck. That night, Jane took a little swig, more giggles. Toward 4 a.m., the two of them were nodding off, giggling, stumbling around, slurring their words in happy unison. And then they went to bed. The swigging of the Vicodin continued. The two of them could be heard giggling and laughing inside the master bedroom. The next day, Sonny had planned to force Elvis to take some sun. He was awful white looking, so we wanted to get him a tan to make himself look healthier. The entourage woke around 11 in the morning. Sonny and Charlie read the papers, waiting for their boss to rise from his heavy night. Noon came and went. Normally, someone would have taken up his breakfast, but this day they didn't, and it's getting on towards 1 o'clock. I casually asked whether anybody had checked on Elvis. The point that the fear of him taking an overdose is never far from our minds, although he's very skillful when it comes to measuring out drugs. He knows those drugs better than a doctor. But on this morning, he had miscalculated. Sonny wandered back to the master bedroom to check. He went through the first door and then banged on the second door, which opened into Presley's suite. You getting up, boss? What do you want for breakfast? I'll fix it. Silence. Hey, Elvis, boss, you there? No answer. Sonny's heart started to pump. Jesus, he opened the door, and Elvis was sprawled across the bed sideways. Inside the room, the temperature is way down. It's freezing. He would keep that temperature down so low you could hardly stand it. I dashed over to Elvis. Boss, boss, come on, snap out of it. Boss. Sonny was screaming. He recalls that Elvis was taking long, deep breaths about 5 seconds apart. Sonny crawled across the bed to where Jane was lying naked under the bedclothes. Jane, Jane, come on. Let's get up. Come on. Sonny will never forget what he felt. Oh man, this was it. The whole trip was over. I was sure that they had both bought it. I opened Jane's eyes and they were staring straight ahead like glass marbles, and there was a terrible gasp. She wasn't breathing properly. It was like a long, strangled, half groan, half gasp. And then I opened her eyelids again and they were blank. I slapped her across the face hard a couple of times, but no reaction. Christ, I was scared. I yelled out to Charlie Ho, Charlie, you better get a doctor in here quick. Elvis and his gal here are out of it real bad. Within minutes, a doctor, whom we will call X, arrived at the house on Chino Canyon Road. By this time, Elvis had started to come around. Dr. X took one look at the girl, checked her pulse, her breathing, and her eyes, and said, We've got to get an ambulance here. This girl is dying. We can't waste any time. Elvis was staggering around like a drunken sailor. He told the doctor, Come on, doc, she'll be okay. Just give her a shot of Ritalin. I'm telling you, she'll be okay. Sonny was getting exasperated. Here they had a girl dying on their hands, and Elvis is telling the doctor what to do. Man, I was hot. I could have smacked him right in the mouth. Damn fool telling the doctor his business. Dr. X was obviously extremely concerned. Elvis started to argue with him. It's just too much Vicodin, that's all. She was drinking the damn stuff like water. Just give her a shot of Ritalin and she's going to be okay. Dr. X cut him short. No, we're getting her in an ambulance and straight to emergency. Within minutes, the ambulance sped to the house. Charlie Hodge and Sonny followed the ambulance to the hospital. They pumped her stomach, hooked her up to machinery and everything, says Sonny. Charlie Hodge looked at her and glanced back to Sonny and said, Man, looks like she ain't going to make it. Sonny looked at the ground and for a moment and thought he was going to cry. Dr. X came across to them. This girl is in bad shape. I'll be honest, I can't promise anything. Why don't you go back to the house and I will tell you if there's any change. Sonny and Charlie drove home in silence. Elvis was beginning to snap out of it. He had popped some Ritalin. Any change? He asked in a flat monotone. No, said Sonny gravely. Charlie chipped in. The doctor doesn't know if she's going to live or die. Elvis frowned. I told that girl not to drink so much. She was whacked. Oh, thank you. We got 1970 coming in, gifting memberships. That's my husband, for anyone who don't know. Yeah, we all love Elvis's stuff too, Ivona. Like I was saying, it's you can separate the art from the artist for sure. Let's see. Elvis then went into a bedroom to make an important telephone call. Sonny was getting angry. Here, a girl was dying on them, and within seconds, Elvis was telling everybody it had nothing to do with him. I don't care how he cuts it, Sonny says. It was his bottle of drugs. That little girl had never even touched a glass of champagne. And now, because of him, she's battling for her life in the hospital. And all he can do is tell the doctor what to do and then tell us it's all her fault. He is a son of a bitch. At about 7 that night, Charlie Hodge got a call from Dr. X. She's starting to come out of it. She just might be okay. I can't promise anything, but we're doing our best, he told Charlie. Why don't you drop by the hospital? Charlie and Sonny jumped in the car and they were there within minutes. We went into intensive care unit, Sonny recalls. There were 4 or 5 beds in there and Jane was the only patient. She looked awful. Her eyes were closed. I think she's going to be okay, Dr. X says. It looks like she's coming out of it. She is going to live. Sonny's skin crawls when he thinks of what happened next. He went across to her and touched her arm. Jane, he whispers softly. She opened her eyes, and suddenly, Sonny whispers, she came off that bed like a wild animal. She was hissing like a mountain lion, snarling like a wild beast. I got scared. Sonny threw an alarmed glance at Dr. X, who explained, she doesn't know where she is. Is she okay? Sonny asked. Is she going to be okay? Well, said the doctor, we don't know how she is affected by it. We don't know how much oxygen was stopped. We can only do our best and hope. Jesus, thought Sonny, what if this little girl is turned into a vegetable because of some crazy stunt back in Chino Canyon? And so, as Sonny and Charlie left the hospital, Sonny remembers that Jane was still having trouble breathing. She needed oxygen. Elvis was sitting in the lounge room of the Chino Canyon home. She's going to be all right, I think, Sonny said sullenly, but she might just never be the same again. She was hissing at me like a damn cat. She didn't recognize me. Elvis was off again on his own trip. All he said was, man. Sonny doesn't remember his ever asking about a telephone call to Jane, ever visiting her, or acknowledging her existence for a very long time. Someone else was doing the worrying. The person to whom Elvis had made the important telephone call was a man he turned to often in a time of trouble. Elvis always turned to him when he got involved in something he couldn't handle. Sonny remembers. The hospital bill was paid for. She was flown back home. There wasn't a whisper about it in the press. The newspapers would have had a party with that. Later on, someone brought up the fact that there might be a lawsuit brought by the girl or her mother. Joe Esposito was instructed to give her some money. The mother, bless her, wouldn't accept it. I think Joe ended up by giving them something. But the girl and her mother didn't want anything. They didn't sue or anything like that. They were real great people. The point was because Elvis had this image of being so anti drug, the girl and the mother didn't want to destroy that image. That girl, Jane, she loved Elvis, man. Do you know, I believe that even if her daughter had died, the mother would have still kept her mouth shut. What the hell? He didn't get her to drink it, or whoops. Jane did call Elvis later that year. He spoke to her briefly and he told her, according to Sonny, hun, when you get a little bit better, I'll take you on tour. But Sonny relates she was out. Elvis didn't want to face that situation. Sonny saw Jane again. She and her mother had driven to Las Vegas to catch Elvis's show. He met her mother, too. They were sleeping in their car because they couldn't afford a room in the hotel, and Joe Esposito found out about it and picked up the tab and put them in a guest room at the Hilton. When I spoke to her, she had tears in her eyes. Sonny, don't you know I don't hold that against him? He didn't do anything. It was all my fault. There she was taking the rap for the whole thing. He didn't get her to drink it. He was the king. Anyone would do anything to please him. Then Sonny grows sad. Man, it was all over for that little girl. Her face never lit up anymore. Whatever happened back there to her when she overdosed, it affected her whole personality. She was a different person. There wasn't that shy giggle, that easy laugh anymore. She seemed to be deep and quiet and introverted. I'm no doctor, but that experience just turned her completely around. And yet all she could do was talk about Elvis. There was a genuine love there. I never heard Elvis talk about her again. By 1971, Elvis was a changed guy. He was no longer the shy, fun loving kid from Memphis. No, he was just living for himself and all that damn junk he took. He was like a walking drugstore. Right, Highland Girl? Yeah, definitely. Let me see what the next chapter is about. That's about Elvis's senior year. We'll skip that. 7, let's see. It's about Guinness Book of World Records and stuff. Some of y'all wanted to hear the chapter after Priscilla or after Lisa was born, how he changed towards Priscilla. I'm trying to find that. Here is the pictures in the book. This is Red and Sunny, or Dave Habler, Red West and Sunny, who we've been reading about. And the little boy in both of these are Elvis, and then that's Elvis's parents. And then here we got Elvis when he's older and with his mom and dad again. Yeah, I was shocked the mom said that. Diet Pepsi? Like, what? And then we got Elvis in the army and Elvis kissing his friend's bride on Red's wedding day when Red and Pat got married. Yeah, it really is, Ivona, for sure. Then we got Elvis and Priscilla. Elvis, Priscilla, and Lisa. Elvis and a bunch of different people here. Elvis and Richard Nixon. Apparently, he took a gun into the White House and he was all kinds of high and told Richard Nixon that he wanted to like be a secret CIA agent and root out the hippies or something like that. Poor Elvis. Yeah, drug addiction really changes people. Elvis again towards the end of his life. Yeah, I'm trying to find that. Let's see. That's him in the army in this chapter. Something crazy is happening in this chapter 18. So let's check that out. I'm not sure exactly where they're at yet. Oh, that's after. Okay, I need to go back. Hang on. See the stuff about Mike Stone. I wonder if maybe they didn't talk about that part much. Candles. Sorry, friends, I'm trying to find where to start. Okay, let's start with 17. It says, no matter how many women Elvis Presley had in the past, and no matter how many he may have in the future, it is clear there is only one woman to whom he will always have a strong romantic attraction. And that woman is petite, sophisticated Priscilla Bolu Presley. Bolo, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Her middle name. It's French, and I'm not super great with French if I haven't actually heard it already. They both had a genuine love for each other, even though she left Presley for another man. No other man has had a lasting influence on her growth as Elvis Presley. Also, from what I understand, these guys no longer support Priscilla. It's important to remember that they wrote this before Elvis died. The Presley groupies, oops, Wrong. After all the glossy fanfare magazines and stories are digested, it must be remembered that Presley virtually raised Priscilla from the time she was a 15-year-old schoolgirl until they finally split in an explosion of anger, selfishness, and misunderstanding. That part has always weirded me out. I know that times were different and a lot of things were normalized that, are totally illegal and very Epsteiny now. People didn't think the same, but I've never understood why her parents just basically gave over Priscilla to Elvis at 14. Yeah, 14 Kung Fu Panda, even though they said 15 in this book, but yeah, we know it was 14 when they met. Says the Presley groupies who chart both lives from day to day often theorize that eventually, when Presley is 60 and Priscilla is 50, after a lifetime of doing their own thing apart, they may reunite. It is not altogether a bizarre theory. There is an incredible bond of loyalty between them, as well as their beautiful daughter. Neither will permit a word to be said against the other. Presley met Priscilla in Germany in the closing months of his army service. Red recalls, I got back to Memphis before Elvis. I was sort of causing a bit too much trouble in the bars, and I was getting nowhere fast. I left soon after a brawl in the Beck's beer bar with some bully they called the Mexican Bull. One of the customers who watched Red's demolition of the Mexican Bull that night was Joe Esposito, the sharp witted recruit from Chicago who was later to pick up with Presley and become one of the boys. Diamond Joe was impressed with Red's action and in later years was only too happy to let him head up the Royal Bodyguard. Presley returned to Fort Dix, New Jersey on March 3, 1960. Colonel Tom Parker had stoked the fires of publicity to hysterical proportions. Only World War III could have kept Presley off the front pages that day. Within a week, he was back in Graceland and swapped his army boots for his blue suede shoes. Red, who was in Los Angeles at the time writing songs, soon made his way back to the Presley Mecca in Whitehaven. He had a girlfriend at the time, says Red, and I won't mention her name because what Elvis said to us all just might embarrass her. But he said, it's about time I got with a girl who was a bit more sharp. Oh, that's, man, he could be rude to women. Ugh. And downright cruel, as we know with the pill cue story. Well, we don't know what he meant, but after a while, he kept talking about this girl, Priscilla, he met in Germany after I left. When he told me she wasn't yet 15, I nearly had a heart attack. He assured me that this girl was different, much different than the average Memphis girl, and I was prepared to disbelieve him. Anyway, she had been introduced to him by a guy in special services by the name of Curry Grant. Elvis started to talk more and more about this girl as the year wore on, and I believe he even wrote her a letter, which I can tell you is the most unheard of thing for Elvis. A lot of things were happening. We started our movie schedules, kicking off with GI Blues, and we would always bring girls over to him. It's not that we were procuring, but he was a little shy about making the first approach. Oh, how do they define procuring? Oh my God. Yeah, it's pretty bad, Ivona. Like I said, I'm a big fan, but I have to separate the arts from the artist. I'm a big fan of his art. I'm not a big fan of how Elvis personally treated people. And I do believe that a lot of it is a result of his addiction. But yeah, procurement. They just straight up said it. It's not procurement. And we have to remember that they were worried about what they were confessing to here, and this is in the 70s, you know? Sounds a little Epstein. Just saying. That night, they would be in bed. That charm, man, it just dripped off him, but he always got back to talking about Priscilla. We were having a lot of fun in those days in Memphis when we weren't in Hollywood. Sonny had joined the gang, and we were at Wimpy Adams amusement park riding the cars and roller coasters, and we were skating like fools at Rainbow Skating Rink. Despite the many women Presley was seeing, he always harked back to the little girl in Germany. He made several long distance telephone calls to her and to the boys Red, Sonny, Lamar Fike, Charlie Hodge, and his cousin Gene Smith, Alan Fortas, and a new addition, a Yankee, Joe Esposito. It seemed their boss was finally in love. Presley arranged for Priscilla, daughter of an Air Force captain who was later to become a colonel, to visit him over Christmas in 1960. Presley wanted to see just whether he was indeed in love or whether he was just smitten by a fresh and beautiful schoolgirl. Ah! Oh, yeah, isn't it, Ivona? Hey, Jenny. Right? Yeah, I know. It's so disappointing. I hate it. I hate it. I feel like all our heroes are bad if we look too close, and I don't want them to be. I can't any of them be good? Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that makes me so sad, for any of you who watched my videos about Ruslana Korshnova, the Russian Rapunzel, who I believe was murdered by Epstein or maybe some Russian forces, maybe them together. Um, but she was so pure. I can't find her actually doing anything wrong. Epstein took her to his island in 2006 and he never took her back. And it seems like it was because she wasn't very capable, willing to do the things he wanted, like, wasn't even capable of thinking that way. I feel like that's why they took her out. So sadly, it seems like the only ones of our idols that remain good died young. And I hate it. Yeah. Hate it, hate it. Right, Art? Yes. Thank you, Kung Fu. Right. Yeah, they got a bad rep for a lot of things about this book because Elvis died right after that, and a lot of people felt like they were, just picking on someone who couldn't defend himself anymore, like, and then they got a bad rap again because they pretty much defended Priscilla in this book, but we know how Priscilla went on to do later, and from what I understand, they don't support that anymore. Yep. I know, right? I wasn't looking for it in Elvis's book. Like, why do we have to see this? But I still love his music, friends. You know what? Still love his music, and it doesn't hurt any young ladies now for us to listen to his music because he's not hurting anyone, you know? Right, Brandy? Oh, the fact that Ruslana had never even washed her own hair before she left home to be a model. Yeah. Oh, wow. No, I haven't, Jenny. I'll have to check that one out. Yep, could be Marcel. Okay. Where was I at? Sunny was at Graceland at this time. Elvis went to the airport alone to greet her, and all the boys were in the living room at Graceland. We didn't know what to expect, but we were Southern boys, and a 15-year-old girl in Memphis was someone who giggled and talked about a boy's acne. Anyway, what? That's weird. Anyway, that afternoon, just before Christmas, he walks in with her. Man, she was everything he said she was. She looked much older than 15, but not in a cheap way. She was very mature looking. She had been a child in the service and had lived all over. She knew nothing about men, hadn't any experience with them from what I know, but she seemed every bit as mature as all of us guys put together. Elvis had made arrangements with Priscilla's dad that his daughter would stay at Vernon's house. I believe Vernon is his dad, I think. Or was Vernon his manager? I'm sure one of y'all will know in the chat. I can't remember at the moment until they give us more clues. Vern was living with Dee in another house across, oh, I guess it's not his dad, across from the back of Elvis's house at Graceland. There was a pasture and then Vern's house. The whole time she was there, about 2 weeks, it was a very quiet event. Dinners at home, small parties with the boys, and I guess we went to the amusement park and the movies, but no wild times. Priscilla had a very easy way with her. She had a nice, easy laugh. She was neither overawed with Elvis and the boys nor uppity. She was just right. Man, she fit in perfectly. There was no doubt that Elvis had got himself a great chick. After Priscilla returned to Germany, Presley polled the boys on their reaction to her. He said, "Let's take a poll." It was early days of the Memphis Mafia, and it was a lot more democratic than in years to come. Members of the entourage didn't necessarily say what they thought Priscilla Presley wanted to hear. However, to a man, they agreed that Priscilla was the greatest thing since fried chicken. Presley was quite impressed at their reaction. Sonny remembers that Presley had made up his mind he couldn't go on living in the States if she was going to live in Germany with her parents. He started making arrangements to have her come back to the States. He spent a lot of time talking to her father on the telephone. Now, Captain Bolu was a pretty smart customer. He wasn't suddenly going to let his daughter wander off and take up with a sex symbol just like that. Elvis had to really pour it on. Elvis told her father that he really needed her, loved her, and would respect her in every way, and that her father wanted her respected. He told him that he would marry her one day, and he undertook to put her through school. He would tell us all that Priscilla was the one he wanted because he thought he deserved something better than the girls he was running around with in Hollywood. She's 15. It feels like your dad's just making a deal, like he's just negotiating a deal, you know? Like, ah. Oh, well, we hear you, Joy. Yeah, Lulu was trying to make some comments earlier that YouTube was eaten for her. They don't want us to know y'all's truths. Right. Right, Ruth? Yeah. Presley finally won over Captain Baloo. It was decided that Priscilla would live with Vernon and Dee and that Presley would put her through school. The boys were out in force to meet her at the airport when she arrived, and Sunny remembers she looked even better than the second time around. Why does this feel so Epstein-y, y'all? Epstein put the girls through school too. And 15 was the age you like to get them. 14 and 15. Right, Kung Fu? Yep. Red saw her soon after. I was in the kitchen at Graceland and I saw her there. Wow, every bit as good as the build-up. The great thing about her was her easy manners. You always felt easy with her. She did look a lot older than 15 and spoke a lot older, very sophisticated. Priscilla was a Catholic, so Presley had her enrolled in the School of Immaculate Conception, which stood on the corner of Park and Lamar Avenues. The boys used to call it Virginity Row. Right? Yeah. I know, Ivona. I hate it. I hate it. At the beginning of her school days, Presley would often drive her to school in one of his huge fleet of cars. For the South in those days, it was somewhat bizarre, but there was very little comment in the press. Once again, the skilled hand of Colonel Tom Parker was felt. Red and Sunny are still amazed that more was not made of the romance by the press. Even the fan magazines trod fairly lightly. Colonel Tom convinced everybody that Priscilla was living with Vernon and Dee, and that absolutely everything was above board. As soon as Priscilla was old enough to drive, Presley bought her first Corvair and then a lavender Chevy Sports Coupe. She lived in a mansion. She had the best schooling, everything money could buy, and the sex symbol of all sex symbols as her romancer. What more could she want? As the years went on and Priscilla's personality developed, she found there was much more to life than riches. She was, she realized, right up until 1972, a virtual prisoner in a gilded cage. It's funny, they got her like they were careful earlier to say we weren't procuring, and then they're like she lived as a prisoner in a gilded cage while she went to school. I'm getting like jumpy and nervous. I don't like I said, I still love his music, friends. I do still love his music. That's funny, Kung Fu. Chevy Corvair. They're cool cars though. Y'all know I love my classic cars. I used to do a little street racing when I was younger. Can't do that now. I'm very domesticated. Safe. Okay. Presley always kept Priscilla on a pedestal. It was like everything he does, says Sonny. He got what he wanted, put it away in storage, and went on to something else. Priscilla could have anything she wanted, but the thing she wanted most was Elvis. In the last couple years she was with him, he was away from her 85% of the time. She couldn't see him for 7 weeks at a time. Then they would spend the weekends together, and then he was off again. She could buy all the clothes and jewels she wanted, and Elvis would not have said a word, but she didn't want that. She was not a heavy spender when you think of other girls who have been around him. Boy, that changed, didn't it, friends? Wow, that changed. Yeah, they do look cool. Oh, I hear you, Diet. Tom Parker. Okay. I will check it out, Jenny. She just wanted a normal life. But towards the end, Elvis' life consisted of staying in bed all day and getting whacked out of his head. There were times when we wouldn't see him for a week. He would just stay up in that room taking downers, watching television, watching the closed circuit television, which covered the entire house. She didn't want that kind of life. Toward the end, she wanted to do something with her days, get out and enjoy life. She didn't want to stay in a hotel room all day or in the bedroom of Graceland all day asleep. But in earlier days, Presley lived with genuine vibrancy, even if it was helped along by popping a dexedrine here and there. What the hell is a dexedrine? I have no idea. I know I've heard the name before. It's probably one of those outlawed drugs. He had a lovely, irresponsible lust for life that never seemed to be satisfied. He was romancing several ladies in Hollywood on his various movie assignments, and he would even play a little bit in Memphis. The Memphis Mafia hung out in the back room of a place called Chenault's. It was especially cordoned off for them, and there was plenty of action. Red remembers that Presley couldn't care less about his various girlfriends knowing about each other, but he was always careful never to throw anything up in Priscilla's face. Any suggestion that he was playing around was fiercely denied by Elvis. Later on, when gossip columnists started picking up on stuff, a lot of which was true, he would just deny it outright and call it all publicity and lies. He was very convincing because by the time the columnist got on to a story about a girl he was seeing, he would be back in Memphis and he would turn it around that those columnists had seen him out with a girl while he was at Priscilla's side. When she was younger, I guess she swallowed it, but not so much later on. But in those days, when he was around her and not running around Hollywood, he was very attentive, very affectionate. Oh, it's a diet speed type diet pill. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure, Joy. Yep. Even cigarettes didn't like cigarettes used to be part of like the army rations. Oh, got it. Got it. Got it. Those early times at Graceland are thought of the best years in the life of the Memphis Mafia. Presley was making up to $3 million a year, and he was going to make sure it was spent on fun for him and the boys. Red and Sonny remember those years before he married Priscilla as Presley's cowboy period. It was the it was the beginning of some very bizarre buying habits. Well, says Red with more than a hint of nostalgia in his voice, it started off with Elvis buying Priscilla a horse. Now she didn't have anyone to ride with, so Elvis bought his cousin Patsy Presley a horse so she could ride together. Then he bought himself one. Then, when he saw us looking forlornly at them riding horses, he decided we should all have horses. He bought every one of us a horse. Graceland only had 13 acres, and when Red once accidentally ran Presley down on horseback and dislocated cartilage in his chest, Presley decided it was time to get a special place for the horses so they could ride them without running each other down. What the hell? You got to be a special something or other to run somebody over with your horse and not even blame it on the horse being run off crazy. Like they said, Red accidentally ran him down. Oh, good point, Ivona. Yep. Ugh, that's crazy. He found a nice little place across the Mississippi border not too far from Graceland. It was a beautiful estate of 150 rolling acres, owned by a local rancher named Jack Adams. He paid in excess of $500,000 for it. It had a gleaming lake with tributaries running off of it and picturesque bridges, the works. Now, says Rez, he decides we should all have chaps and cowboy hats. We were going to be ranchers. We were going to have cattle. And so he bought some cattle that was developed by King Ranch. He didn't know how valuable they were, but they were really prime cattle. Now every ranch has to have a truck, so he bought a Dodge truck. Then all hell broke loose. He started buying trucks for everybody. All the boys all had those ranch trucks, Rancheros, Camaros, El Caminos. I think Sonny remembers the price, $97,000 worth of trucks in one buying spree. Yeah, right, Lulu? All right, Kung Fu. Oh my God. When word spread about this, there were quick salesmen lined up outside the ranch. He called the ranch Rising Sun. Ooh, House of the Rising Sun. Outside of the place, there was every kind of salesman in the world. We would try to stop him from walking outside, literally try to force him from going out there unless one of us is with them, because sure as hell he would buy something from them all cash. He would sign for it and say, "Give the bill to my daddy." I remember one salesman there had 3 great big stall trucks you could haul horses in. Anyway, a guy comes down to survey the place, quiet kind of guy, going about his business. And Elvis looks at this 3 haul truck that he had no use for. He said to the surveyor, who had never laid eyes on before, "You like that truck?" The surveyor looks up, sort of sleepy eyed, and says, "What?" And Elvis just gestures to the salesman to make out a slip, and he gives it to the guy and says, "Take it, man, it's yours." The surveyor nearly dropped dead on the spot. I think he sold it for cash the next day. Yeah, I've heard that too. That like if Elvis, like, just met someone and they complimented anything, like his rings or something, he would immediately just take it off and give it to him. Like, the shirt give you the shirt off his back was literal with Elvis. So, for all of his problems, he had good points. Like, I say his problems, for all of his horrific nature things, he had some good nature things too. They don't make up for anything, but, it's just worth noting. Sonny continues, Alan Fortas tells me a funny anecdote. It's just more about the salesman. Let me try to get back to the Priscilla stuff. Skip a little, skip a little. Uh, okay. All through this time, of course, Priscilla Beaulieu was not only growing up, she was growing into a mature woman and one who was not satisfied with being Elvis Presley's girlfriend. She wanted marriage. Her parents were calling Presley to ask politely if he intended to behave honorably in the situation. Colonel Tom Parker wasn't too happy either. So far, he had manipulated the press beautifully. But how long would it last? For everyone's sake, Colonel Tom wanted his boy Elvis and Priscilla man and wife. Presley had a long string of romances with well known and not so well known actresses, and both Red and Sonny remembered overhearing several heated scenes between Presley and Priscilla. Red says they had fights like any normal couple, but she had a mind of her own. She had suspicions that he was running around with other women, but she never really caught him in the act. She was not going to be made a fool of, I can tell you. Sonny remembers a battle royal in the rented Bel Air home in Roca Palace. It was about the same time as Elvis was buying us cars and things. I always got the feeling that in the early days, Priscilla didn't really like us hanging around as much as we did. She never said anything, but I guess she had arguments along the line that he spent more time with the boys than with her. Anyway, this argument was a beauty. He was really ranting and she was screaming. We were about 3 bedrooms away, but you could hear furniture and things falling over. Elvis comes out and he is extremely calm for someone who has been ranting and raving, and he says quietly, "I just told her to pack all her stuff and get the fuck out." At this time, he is helping her pack, throwing her clothes out of the closet onto the floor. Well, she is all packed, and he walks into her and says, "Now unpack, goddammit, you are not going anywhere." He told us later that women can get you by the balls. He could make a person feel very insecure with that sort of stuff. He did it with us all the time, making you think you were not as tight as you might have thought you were. It was a reverse psychology thing. Both Red and Sunny believed that to some degree, Presley was keeping Priscilla off balance so she would get acclimatized to the treatment when they got married. There is no doubt that either man's mind, that Presley intended right along to get married, although like most men in his situation, he was in no great hurry. The boys never really got close to Priscilla. Not that she was standoffish, she wasn't. She was extremely pleasant. But they respected her position. And also, they didn't want to exaggerate their already noticeable presence to a woman who perhaps couldn't be blamed if she wanted more of Presley to herself. Besides, the boys were simply having too much fun. When Elvis first took over Graceland, says Red, there was a ritual that every New Year, every July 4th, he would put on these fireworks displays. Actually, they weren't so much displays as they were firework wars. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna skip them talking about their boyish antics and get back to Priscilla. Okay. On one particular firework night, when everybody, including Priscilla, was standing around the kitchen, Red recalls that Presley had bought little explosive pellets. Uh, oh, once again, more of their firework stuff. Something exploded in his hand, blah, blah, blah. Trying to get to Priscilla having the baby. Apparently, they accidentally burned down a house with the fireworks. Okay. We all check into the Aladdin Hotel in Vegas. I brought my wife Pat along too. Anyway, we're sitting around waiting for the call from Joe Esposito, who was in touch with the colonel who was making the arrangements. I'm sitting in my room and there's nothing happening. No telephone calls, nothing. So I go down to Joe Esposito's room, knock on the door, and he opens the door and he's all dressed up in his tux. And I ask him what's going on. How come nobody has told me what time we're going to the wedding? Now Joe looks like he has swallowed a frog and he tells me, "You all aren't going to the wedding. You're going to the reception. Marty and I will be there, but you all will be at the reception." I blew my fucking stack. I went ape. I didn't care who heard me. I was really pissed off. The man brings us all the way to Las Vegas, and then we are told we're not invited to the wedding. I suspected Joe and the Colonel had fixed this all up, and Elvis wasn't being thoughtful enough to make sure what is going on. Boy, was I mad. I walked into the room and told Pat, and she broke down and cried. It was the thought of it, man. I wasn't interested in going to a reception. I wanted to be there at the time E was getting married. I thought we were that close. As it turned out, I just wanted to get straight back on a plane to Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have any money on me, so I had to borrow $50 from a Memphis jeweler who had come down to lay on the ring. As it happened, the plane I got on was the same flight as the rest of the wedding party caught. I didn't say two words to anybody. Vern and Dee were on that plane, and we didn't even exchange a glance. As it turned out, I just ignored Elvis for a month or so. He had got on another plane owned and piloted by Danny Kaye, the comedian. He went to Palm Springs for their honeymoon. Joe Esposito and Marty Lacker were Elvis's best men. I had nothing against either of those guys, but right then I felt like decking them. I couldn't help feel there was something behind it. Okay, this is him complaining about being distanced from Elvis. After his marriage, Presley, while affectionate and attentive, did everything possible to keep Priscilla away from his immediate places of work. She would come on location from time to time during his movies, but the handsome young superstar had a lot of extracurricular activities to take care of. There was a romance, both light and heavy, on virtually every film that Presley made. He would give the girls the cold shoulder whenever Priscilla was around, says Sonny, and he gave Priscilla a lot of respect. But there is no doubt that Elvis wanted to have his cake and eat it too. In the beginning of the Las Vegas and the tours, often the wives would be along. For instance, in Vegas, on say a 4-week engagement, the wives would come down for the opening weekend and then on every weekend until he closed. Perhaps they would stay around relaxing for a few days after the close, too. Priscilla was there with the wives and girlfriends, and they were around quite a bit. But towards the end of the marriage in 1971, Elvis cut down just so the wives and girlfriends were at the opening and closing. Then he cut down to opening, and there were times when he wouldn't bring Priscilla at all. When Priscilla didn't come, neither did the other wives or girlfriend. No woman no matter who she is married to, is going to take that. There were times when he wouldn't see her for maybe 7 weeks. How can a marriage last through that? It was a strain on the other guys, too. Joe Esposito's marriage broke up. So did Jerry Schilling's. I'm not saying they wouldn't have broken up anyway, but the separation had to contribute to it. Okay, then he talks about his wives a while. Uh, When we were living in the same home as Elvis in Los Angeles on Monteville Road, there was quite a bit of tension between Priscilla and Judy. One day, I'm with Elvis, and I think we're at the doctor's together. Anyway, we get this call that they're at each other's throats, and Priscilla is threatening to use karate on Judy. Oh my God. Hey, New Orleans lady. Priscilla was threatening to use karate on Judy. Judy is yelling that she doesn't care. Go ahead and try it. So we raced up there to calm them down. Elvis thought it was pretty funny. It was just a case of two women being in the same house. What? Later on, after Priscilla left Elvis, she sort of apologized for the way she acted towards Judy. We realized that Priscilla was under a lot of pressure too. Let's see. It looks like they talk about Priscilla cheating here. I don't think they really talk about how Elvis is after Lisa is born. Trying to find any mention of Lisa. Um, about Elvis trying to karate chop some narcotics people. Some dude, random dude, walks up to Elvis and asks him to help get a hitman to beat up someone. Very weird. Sorry, friends, I am trying to find any mention of Lisa. Uh, they're talking about they almost got their ass blown off because of some fool idea of Elvis's. Says, of course, we could have refused to go. It was our fault that we went. We felt embarrassed about it later. I had an idea these guys weren't at fault. There could have been a whole panic shooting there. I later made myself a promise I wouldn't go out on a limb for the Stanley boys again. Figured we worked for Elvis and took care of him, but no more Stanley boys. I don't know who the Stanley boys are. Weird. He talks about Elvis wanting to become a movie star. Turn my fan on, friends. I'm getting a little warm in here. Yep. Mike Stone was her karate instructor she took off with. Isn't that what Giselle Bundchen left Tom Brady for too? Was her karate instructor? Yeah, I'm getting the feeling that they might have chose not to talk about Lisa because Elvis and all them were still alive then. Okay, let's see what the last pages are, and then I'm going to end this because I'm getting hungry. And after I end it, because all the chat is preserved, I'll be able to go back through the beginning of the chat to the end and collect all the comments that say I want to be in the drawing, and I'll do the drawing and post it and contact y'all. Okay. The last page says, the boys report that Presley does not like to be around other performers unless he is in charge. We used to see a lot of Tom Jones in Las Vegas, and he was a real gentleman, says Sonny. We would go to his shows, and Elvis would always say something to knock him. Tom wears very tight pants, and Elvis would always say, he sticks a damn sock down his pants. I guess he was jealous of Tom Jones' equipment. He would comment on Tom's singing. And during a performance, when he was in the audience, he would sing the songs along with Tom, making out that he could sing the high notes, which he couldn't. Unless he is the center of attention, says Sonny, he just isn't interested. His ego is just out of control, and it's a pity because he wasn't like that way back. It hurts to see someone you love change so very much. Then they have an epilogue here. Bobby, Ricky. Ricky, Bobby. It was the morning of July 13th, 1976, and Sonny West was at his dentist's office in Memphis. Red West was at the office of a private investigator discussing a lawsuit that had been brought against Presley. Dave Hebler was at the pool of the Travel Lodge near the Memphis airport. Judy, my wife, called me, says Sonny, and told me that Vernon Presley has called the Travel Lodge and wanted to talk to me about an important matter. I called Mr. Presley from the dentist's office. He was at Graceland. He said that he would like to meet me in person. I told him I was a grown man and could handle anything he said to me on the telephone. Vernon Presley's voice lowered and he said, well, things haven't been going too well. And well, we're going to have to cut back on expenses and we're going to have to let some people go. Sonny felt a chill creep into his body. Oh, I see, and I guess I'm one of the ones that's going to be let go? Vernon Presley said, yes, I'm afraid so, and there will be others too, unfortunately. Sonny asked who they were, but Vernon declined to answer, adding that he would prefer to tell them themselves. In a daze, Sonny drove back to the hotel and watched morosely out of his hotel room as his young son Brian and his beautiful wife played outside by the pool. He wondered how he was going to break the news to her. Sonny called Dave and told him the news. Dave answered that he had been summoned to see Vernon Presley also. It looked like he was going to get the chop too, which materialized about an hour later. Red was called Sonny's room soon after. His voice was flat. "I've been fired, man." That completed the firing of Sonny, Red, and Dave. Vernon Presley told all of them it was for economic reasons, but the boys believed the execution came as a whim of Elvis Presley's. "But what pissed us off," said Red. "After all those years I had been with him, he never took the time to tell me himself. He just cut out and let his father do. It's cold, man." It was not so much the loss of a job that hurt the boys. It was, says Sonny, that we believed Elvis loved us, really loved us. We knew he behaved pretty wildly, and we knew he could have a bad temper. But we believed that underneath it all he loved us, and we loved him, and we were part of the family. That's what hurts. Red West had been offered fortunes in the past to write a book about Presley, but always declined. Even when we had our blow ups, I would never have considered it. We were like brothers, man. But in the end, it just worked out that we meant nothing to him. Dave Hebler, when he got over the shock of being fired, said he was relieved. At least I could get on with my own life and not have it be tied to the whims and moods of another human. But frankly, the worst part of it all was telling my mother, Willie. She, like many other mothers, believed that Elvis was God fearing and Christian and a wonderful, non drinking, non smoking person. She's the one who will get a shock out of reading this, and for that I'm sorry. All three, despite their obvious bitterness about their firing and their realization that Presley felt nothing for them, pray and hope that Presley will read the book and come to the realization that his life is leading him on a path to disaster. He will read, Sonny says, and he will get hopping mad at us because he knows every word is truth. And we will take a lie detector test to prove it. But just maybe in the end it will do some good if he can realize what he is doing to himself. Under the circumstances, it would have been near impossible for a man like Presley, given his background, to come through life without his stability being threatened. Dirt poor kids don't grow up in a tiny shack town and become millionaires before they are 21 every day of the week. Presley was a classic case of too much too soon. Red feels that if his mother lived, it would have brought a direction to Presley's life that he seems to badly miss. Had he stayed married to Priscilla, the same thing might have happened. Presley, one of the world's most glamorous males, today is a very lonely man. It's kind of sad, says Red. All that money, all the homes, all the comfort, yet Elvis didn't know if he has a friend to the world. He doesn't know if people who hang around him are there because of the money or because of him. I loved him, but now he hasn't got me. 3 months after the firing, a man called the boys, asking if they would put off writing a book about Presley. The boys refused. The next day, Red called Graceland and spoke to Charlie Hodge, who told him that Presley was screwed up. At 7 in the morning, a slurry-voiced Presley called Red West at his hotel in Hollywood. The conversation went like this. "How you doing, man?" Red, "I just woke up." Presley, "I was just on one of those singing binges. I got a couple new guitars and singing my ass off, watching little kids marvel. I'm by myself. Linda's in LA. She's changing apartments. We had that apartment. The people found I was in back of it and raised the rent double. She got another one right down the street. Charlie told me about the talk you all had. I guess I do owe an explanation." Red, "I wish you had come to me and told me." Presley, "You don't do things like that because that's my daddy's business." Red, "No, it's not." Presley, "I was getting a lot of excess pressure. You know that racquetball thing? A business he had went into. 2 courts for 1,300,000. My understanding was that we were just going to use my name, and that's all. And that was the contract I signed. I did it as a favor to Dr. Nick and Joe. I'm just trying to tell some of the things that led up to it. I was wrong about Hebler, just a bad thing on my part. He was very undermining and sneaky. He hated all you guys and everybody else, and I kept hearing this shit. It just burned into my ear. These goddamn lawsuits, you know how these lawyers are. There were 6 lawsuits in 2 years. I don't know whether you heard it, but they were trying to prove us insane. I'm talking about some influential people who were checking psychiatrist reports. They were trying to prove us insane, the whole bunch." Red, "I could not believe it. You left town. Your daddy called us and talked about cutting down expenses and giving 1 week notice. They give China. Oh, he used a slur here. He said they give Asian workers 2 weeks. Presley, "I don't know anything about it, the 1 week thing." Red, "The bottom fell out of it. I got a little hurt at first." Presley, Well, I can see that. You know, my damn voice is so low. I make JD Sumner sound like a tenor. My damn fingers are blistered. I'm not operating on but one cylinder. Well, you know what happened was a combination of a whole lot of things that piled up on me. It was like a fuse burning. And maybe because I did lose sight of things, especially you, your family, and everything. Red, it was cold, man. Presley, I love Pat. You got a good family and everything. Red, maybe I sometimes overprotected you. You have problems. Presley, well, you know what it is. It's like that old guy said in Cool Hand Luke, a failure to communicate. Red, we sure didn't communicate in the last year or so. And then it goes on for a few more pages. Let me just skip to the last page. Some of it's kind of boring. Red, you have been pretty fucked up. That's what I was talking about. Presley, it's hard to explain. I don't think he liked anybody in this group. I guess I'd become a dollar sign to him. In the process, he lost sight of Elvis. That can easily happen. It happened, man. I become an object, not a person. I'm not that sign. I'm not that image. I'm myself. You're so wrong on one thing, and don't get paranoid. I'm talking to you as a friend on a private line, and there is no soul here. I'm not fucked up by no means. On the contrary, I've never been in better condition in my life. Presley says, I've been through a divorce, you know. You were there, the wedding thing. I had nothing to do with that. Talking about him not being invited to the wedding. That was railroaded through. I didn't even know he was in that little old room on the size of a bathroom with a Supreme Court justice. I was in over there and done so quick I didn't realize I was married. I could see it back then, but that was not my doing. It had nothing to do with, all of a sudden I was getting married. When you go through that, you keep your mind on one thing. Red. Let's get back to the last couple 3 years. Let's face it, you haven't enjoyed yourself. Presley. I enjoy my work. Red. Well, that's after you hurt me. You hurt me and my family very badly. You left us out in the cold. So let's not talk about me hurting you. Presley. Things went on you didn't know about. Red. All I know is I was left out in the cold. Presley, all I know there was friction created in the group. The vibes were so bad. People were scared to move and everything. So who knows what the hell they were hearing and being told. I just know it got to be a very heavy, tense situation. A situation where it could have been fun and relaxed type thing. Something went wrong. And then on top of that, the racquetball thing and everything else and all the personal things. It was the fact we did have to cut down on expenses. Red says, you got to do what you have to do. You have to cut down someone else. I thought I was important to the organization. I'm glad I found out I wasn't. I've got a little life left and I'm going to enjoy it. Presley says, oh, yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation. It's just now that it started to get back on its feet. My daddy has lost down to 165 pounds. I think he's backed up to 178 now. That shocked and scared me to death because you know how I feel. Suspicion was cast on the group. I couldn't figure out the source though. Just like that song we did. We can't go on together with suspicious minds. We can't go on together. That's one of my favorite Elvis songs. With suspicious minds. Anyway, it's just really a lot of Elvis rambling. Presley, he keeps talking about vibes, and Red says, I'm not into the psychic thing. Presley says, I'm not either, but I do know we were constantly sending and receiving all the time. I could feel the negative things, but I couldn't exactly pinpoint what it was. It just reached a boiling point. Hope that you would understand it. It was a temporary thing. Red, he went on and on. Red says, it's been lonely, man, I can tell you. Presley says, well, I can see it. Maybe I was absent, listening too fast. It bugged me when you were talking to Charlie and said I was all fucked up. I'm not. I got a daughter and a life. What profiteth a man if he gains the world and loses his own soul? I love to sing since I was 2 years old. We were sitting here playing the guitar and singing some songs. Love is a many splendored thing, and me and Charlie talked about the harmony part, missing that harmony part. Red says, what can I say? I miss singing it. Presley says, well, look, you take care of yourself and your family, and if you need me for anything, I'd be more than happy to help out. Red says, I appreciate it. Presley says, I mean it. I don't give a goddamn, and I ain't got a goddamn thing to do with articles or no publications or none of that shit that I've heard. They were just rumors, bits and pieces. I don't know nothing. I was on tour and things. I have never sat down with anybody and had it out to me. I just know that you as a person and Pat, if there's anything I can do, any way of getting a job, anything else, let me know. I'm still here, son. Red, I appreciate that, and I will tell Pat what you said because she was hurt and the kids were hurt. Presley, all of us were hurt. It's like that song, Dazada Dazadia. Listen to the dull and ignorant because they too have a story to tell. And then Hank Williams wrote, "You never walked in a man's shoes and saw things through his eyes." After analyzing the blamed thing, I can see it. I can see it clearly. That's why I saying anything I can do at all. Worried about the book? I don't think so. Not on my part. You do whatever you have to do. I just want you and Pat to know I am still here. And that is the end, friends. That's the very last page. It says Friday, October 14th, 1777 at the bottom. I wonder if that's whenever the original owner bought it or something. Because it was printed August 1977. Yeah, same Highland Girl. I still love his music, but wow, just wow. Hey, I'm glad you had a good time in here. Awesome. Thank you all so much for being in here. It is a good book, Marcel. It's crazy. I'm going to go ahead and log off now. We went a little longer than I intended to, and I'm getting kind of hungry. But after I end this, I will go back through the chat and get everyone who wanted to be in the drawing and do the drawing, and I'll post it on the community tab post. Awesome. Thank you so much, friends. Have a good day, everyone. Oh, sorry, Pink Nightmare. Yep, you come in here just at the last. Do you want to be in the drawing? If so, let me know now before I end the chat here real quick. I'll give it just a minute. Oh, thank you, Joy. Appreciate it. Well, everybody have a great day, friends. I'm going to go ahead and end here.